Good morning and happy Women's Month, ladies. Welcome to the JSE She Invests 2020 conference. It is the eve of Women's Day and it's time to celebrate women. It's time to celebrate womanhood. So let's raise our cups. A toast to women. Here's to strong women. Here's to strong women across this country. May we know them. May we be them. May we raise them. Those aren't my words. Those are words from an unknown that I think will live with us beyond the ages. Women, you are extraordinary. So I want to start by acknowledging that by being here, you're saying to me, you're saying to yourself and everyone at She Invests that you are serious about your money. You're serious about building wealth and your future. Welcome once more. The JSE She Invests 2020 virtual event is happening in this form because of COVID-19. Ordinarily and historically, we would have been gathered under one roof, gathered together, learning together, building wealth and investing together. But we can't do that due to the lockdown and the pandemic. But that doesn't mean that our money has to be under lockdown too. So the team found a way to keep us focused on our money goals, even at a time like this. So right now, across the world, gender equality, as many of you may well know, with a specific focus on women's empowerment, has become a global focus. Even as women are steadily being empowered, investing, there is more literacy and there's female participation, but it's still lagging behind. As women, we're still behind when it comes to investing, with more of us likely to save in money in low interest bank accounts rather than invest in stocks and shares that offer a potential for much higher returns over the long term. And so given that ever growing role that women will be playing in the future when it comes to earning and controlling future wealth, this needs to change. It really needs to change, and it starts with you and I. We see that the wealth gap between men and women is decreasing. It's decreasing. But many women still don't feel equipped. Many women don't feel like they can make the right decisions that will ensure financial growth and retirement protection. And so today we're here to get real. We want to get real about getting you to be comfortable in investing. So it is with all of this in mind that the JSE launched the She Invests initiative back in 2018 with a specific focus of having an event that introduces a holistic approach to making investing accessible, making it easy to understand, and making it fun. So over the next 2 hours, we have a power-packed session that you're in store for. We have financial topics with inspiring, knowledgeable female influencers and leaders. So I want you to get ready to grow and get ready to be comfortable in this next chapter of your investment knowledge. There are lots of prizes to be given away this morning, so I want you to stay engaged. I want you to stay tuned. I want you to participate and answer the questions that come up, because in order to win these amazing prizes, including a 10,000 Rand tax-free savings account from one of our sponsors, you need to participate. But first, I want to start by giving you an overview of the JSE She Invests event. And here to kick us off and welcome everybody here today is a woman with a wealth of experience in the financial sector, with over 25 years of international experience, primarily in financial services. She has sat on multiple boards. She's held senior roles in banking, capital markets, and payments. I promised you inspirational women, and here is one of them. And so to officially welcome you, here's the CEO of the JSE, Leila Fourie.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the She Invest 2020 conference. It's absolutely awesome to have you all here today. While we unfortunately are not able to meet in person, what is really exciting about going digital is that it means we open up the borders and we're able to connect with people from all over the country. At the JSE, we place a very high priority on empowerment and on equal opportunities. I'm personally really passionate about diversity and inclusion, and I see diversity as a competitive advantage for the country and for South Africa. We all know that this month we're celebrating Women's Day. On the 9th of August in 1956, women of all races stood up and marched to the union buildings to demand change. And they are responsible for the freedom and the empowerment and the opportunities that we all enjoy today. Nelson Mandela said that education is the most powerful weapon that you can use to change the world. And that rings true even today. Through the She Invests 2020 conference, I'm confident that you are all going to take this opportunity to learn, grow, and empower yourselves to become better stewards of your money and to invest better. It's wonderful to have you all here. I'm very grateful, and I only wish that I were able to meet you in person, and I hope that you take something away that makes you richer, wiser, and more effective in your money management. Thank you so much for joining.
And thank you so much, Leila. Thank you for those words. And by the way, the Johannesburg Stock Exchange is actually one of the most progressive organizations in South Africa, especially after their announcement of a 4-month-long gender-neutral parental leave policy. A gender-neutral parental leave policy, which means that men and women get equal leave. Lots of benefits will flow out of this because women then don't have to be the only ones carrying the career cost of having children. Absolute visionary leadership. Thank you, Leila. And next we have Zanele Morrison. Zanele is the Director of Marketing and Corporate Affairs for the Johannesburg Stock Exchange. And in her role, she oversees the JSE's marketing and branding communications events policy as well as regulations. She also manages the retail strategy and the JSE's BEE agenda. So this occasion is actually a baby. And here's over to you, Zanele.
Hi everyone, I'm Zanele Morrison, Director of Marketing and Corporate Affairs at the Johannesburg Stock Exchange. We're very excited to have you join us for the She Invest 2020, an event for women by women. For those of you who might be new to the event, I'd like to share a brief history of She Invest. The JSE She Invest started over 3 years ago, hosting 50 women. This year we welcome more than 500 women across the country, all eager to learn and engage with dynamic and powerful women in the financial services industry. The JSE She Invest, it's about you and it's for you. It helps to aim women to achieve prosperity through financial investment education, bringing you investment experts all under one roof. This year we are super excited that we are bringing together women from all walks of life across the country. We're really passionate about the upliftment and empowerment, especially of women during these unprecedented times. There's no better time for women to come together, to engage and to learn together, to create and maintain a culture where the success of one woman is an inspiration to others. We have partnered with a range of stockbrokers, leading financial institutions, and experts who will speak on their respective fields. And that's not all. We're giving away great prizes to those most engaged over the next couple of hours. I believe you will leave with something invaluable today that will contribute immensely towards your financial goals and self-empowerment. Thank you so much once again for joining us today.
Thank you for those words, Zanele. And just as she said, we've got some amazing prizes to give away. And that's how we kick things off. I know it's really early in the program, but I've got some fantastic prizes courtesy of our really generous sponsors. So let's get going with that, right? The first prize is a 1,000 Rand investment voucher to get you started with Outvest. Now, this prize goes to the very first person who logged onto the virtual platform. And so let's find out who our winner is. And the winner of that Outvest voucher goes to, and the winner is Shisha Mantere. Shisha, if you're online, quickly drop us a note on the chat right on the side over on the right of the screen. Drop us a note quickly, because if you don't acknowledge that you are online, I have to move on and give it to somebody else. Shisha Mantecha, are you with us? So that we can congratulate you for winning this fantastic prize, 1,000 Rand investment voucher, courtesy of Outvest. Oh, fantastic. Let's see. Let's see. So we've got our first prize. And if you don't acknowledge, just drop us anything to say, I'm here, present. Remember those days back in school that you're getting the bag, you're here to learn. Just acknowledge that you are online. Shisha Manteca. You don't want to miss this opportunity to walk away with this investment voucher. And if you haven't responded, in the next 3, 2, 1. Oh, Shisha, I've got to move on and give it to the next person. And the next name, the next recipient, or the person who now gets to win this prize, I meant it about staying online and being engaged. The next person that we're giving this prize to is Homoto Nkeng. Homoto, let's have a look. Okay, who's getting this prize? Let's have a look at this one. And it is Musima Letswalo. All right, so Musima Letswalo, congratulations for that prize. Now, you have to be quick off the mark, you have to pay attention, and you have to acknowledge that you are with us so that we know you are receiving your prize. Since we can't all be in one room, make sure that you use the chat screen on the side to make us aware that you are present as part of the conference. Let's get on to our second prize. I want to say thank you to Core Shares for making the first prize available. And now we are giving away a JSE gift hamper. It's going to go to the second person who logged onto the virtual platform, and that person has to be online. And our winner for this prize the winner is the JSE gift hamper. The winner is Sajjad Ahmed. All right, Sajjad, let us know if you're online so that we can get this prize to you. We'll contact you and, of course, get it safely out to you. Sajjad, if you're with us, I need to see your response on the chat right on the side of the screen. Otherwise, it just has to go to the next person who logged on this platform after you. So, Sajjad, you've got to move quickly. There we go. Right. So those are our winners. That's how it's going to work. Later in the program as well, we'll be giving away fantastic prizes. So look out for those opportunities. Questions will be asked throughout the session, by the way. So make sure that you use that opportunity to answer correctly. And you never know, you could be walking away with a lovely prize to mark this occasion. And so those are winners. Congratulations to the first lot. So let's move on with the program. And I have a question to ask you. How often do you look at your bank statement? How often do you look at it? Is it when you're broke? Because research shows that people with less money look at their bank accounts more than people with more money. So how often do you look at your bank account? Is it when you don't have money? Or is it when you get a notification? Or is it once a year when you're doing your tax returns, or when you're expecting a deposit, or to check those very pesky 99 Rand unauthorized debits? Some people say that once a month is enough, but if you want to be conscious of your spending, if you want to catch fraud early enough, it's better to check your bank accounts at least once each week. But for many of us, that relationship with money is just anxiety filled. And hopefully we can build a habit of being present with our money, because the more present we are with our money, the better our intentions, the better our awareness of it. So ahead of attending today's occasion, the JSE She Invest 2020, did you wonder about what stops you from saving and investing? What is that impediment? What is the barrier? What is the block that prevents you from investing? Did you wonder that question? Because our first speaker is going to confront that very issue. Vangile Makwakwa is the founder of Wealthy Money. She's a personal finance coach, as well as an online course creator. She teaches women how to unlock their inner money guru. She teaches us how to fall in love with our bank accounts and live our best lives, because if she told you how she's living her best life. And she does this through her hashtag Money Magic online course, which is a one-on-one coach, and as well as one-on-one coaching and international retreats. And in fact, she's living in Sri Lanka at the moment right now, where she's hosting these retreats. She's also the author of Heart, Mind, and Money, It belongs on your bookshelf, by the way. Make sure you have this book. She has a finance degree and an MBA and started her professional finance journey by paying off a $60,000 debt. And she did that in what, 4 years or so? And in today's exchange rates, that's about over a million rand that she paid off in that period. She's been traveling for 15 years, building her company, wealthymoney.com. And as she travels, she's living in several countries, a true nomadic entrepreneur. Vangile, you're living your best life, girl. You're living it. Welcome. Great to have you. Looking forward to your session.
Thank you, Azania. I don't know about living my best life because I'm so nervous today. So thank you, everyone. Okay. As Azania said, my name is Vangile Makwakwa, and I am going to be talking to you about the 3 things that stop us from saving and investing. I started my personal finance journey long before, when I went off to get a finance degree because I really saw my family members that had degrees and masters and all these incredible higher education qualifications. And I decided, and I saw how they were struggling to get financial freedom, how they were struggling to save and invest. So I decided to go do a finance degree because I thought that it would help me. And on top of that, I went and did an MBA when I realized that I actually wasn't coming to grips with my finances. What I was learning at school wasn't translating into my personal finances and my bank account. So before long, I ended up with $60,000 in debt, and I was struggling with panic attacks. I would get panic attacks when I had to go withdraw money, whenever I had to talk about money, if I had to do anything to do with money. So one day I decided, okay, this is it. This is enough. I'm done. I have to do something completely different. So I went on what I call an unlearning, right? I decided to unlearn everything that I'd learned at school. And I went on my own journey to change my finances and my money behavior. And I decided to change some of the things that block most of us from saving and investing. So I'm going to talk to you guys about the 3 things that I've seen that block us from saving and investing. The first thing is that we wait for financial perfection, right? Most of us have this belief that we don't have enough money to save and invest. I know it was one of the things that kept me from saving and investing for years. I always believed that I needed to make more money, that the money that I was making at the time wasn't enough. So I was always waiting for myself to get out of debt. I was waiting for myself to somehow develop an incredible habit of saving. I was waiting for a miracle insight on investing, and I wouldn't talk to the professionals because I thought I didn't have enough. So I just always believed that you wake up and then you're ready. And this delayed me for so long because it meant that I always was, because I was already $60,000 in debt, I was too indebted to start investing. So I started to realize that actually I would always wait for the next year, right? So every year I would promise myself, next year is better. Next year will be better. But what I didn't understand was that we have this tendency as human beings to overestimate what we can achieve in a year and underestimate what we can do in 5 years. So it's totally okay to start small. Nobody told me that, to just start where you are with what you have, and then to start building up from there every year. And within 5 years, you'll be further on than you imagined you would be in a year. Right? So it's not about the short-term 1-year goals that we set. It's more about thinking in terms of 5 years. So it's fine if we don't make the goals in 1 year, but we can definitely make the goal, our investment goals and our saving goals, if we give ourselves more time and we're more patient with ourselves. And the second thing that I learned was that most of us actually don't feel safe about having money. And for me, this was really, really bizarre because obviously you think that you don't feel safe when you don't have money, right? So, and we talk a lot about that, the stress that comes with not having money. But we never ever talk about the fact that having money for most of us actually doesn't feel safe, and that it's never even about the money. For most of us, we've been taught that it's about the money, but it's never ever about the money. For most of us, having more money actually leads to increased responsibilities, especially if we come from a family where we saw the person that was earning the most had the most responsibilities within the family, in terms of looking after everybody else. So most of us will tend to run away from having more money and try to protect ourselves because it doesn't feel safe, because more money equals more responsibilities. And so to protect ourselves, we get rid of money, right? And also it feels unsafe to have for our nervous system when we do have that money, because suddenly we have to say yes to things that we would not normally say yes to within the family. So at least when people ask us, do you have money? We can, if we don't have money, we can honestly say, I don't have money, right? So this is one of the key reasons why we avoid saving and investing and even looking at our bank accounts and getting our finances in order, because we're trying to protect ourselves because our nervous systems are feeling on edge and overwhelmed. Now, the third point that stops us from saving and investing is that we have this resistance to being present with our finances. So when I was $60,000 in debt, I promise you, I did not want to look at my bank accounts every day. You know, I never wanted to look at my bank accounts because there was the fear, the shame, the guilt about my current circumstances. At the back of my head was this, oh my gosh, what is my family going to say? What are my friends going to say? I'm traveling the world and people are not going to know that I'm using credit cards. And what if they truly find out? And actually, when I'm truly honest, that was the basis of my deepest panic attacks, was that people are eventually going to find out the truth about my finances. So I had to go on an entire journey of rewiring my nervous system. One of the ways that I did that was to just learn to sit with my bank account and to just observe my breathing and the sensations in my body as I did so, and try not to react to anything, right? So it was just about, and then I started allowing myself to be present with the practical aspect of my finances. I had about 20 different creditors, right? So I had to list all those creditors. And then I decided I'm going to get help around the finances, right? I need to just start investing with whatever little bit I have. And I promise you, I was full of shame. I was embarrassed, everything. But then I decided that there were 4 things that I could do to start paying off my debt and to start investing. And I'm going to walk you guys through those quickly, right? So in my deep shame, my deep guilt, my deep fear, I started to just sit with those emotions every day because I was working on rewiring my nervous system and I was breathing through everything. So every time I did any of these, please remember that I was also taking time out to just sit and breathe. The first thing I did was I drew up a debt repayment plan. Right? So I drew up a debt repayment plan and I went and negotiated with my creditors. So for example, one of my student loans was $36,000, right? So, and I hadn't been paying it for years. I'm so embarrassed to say that, but it's the truth. And what I did was I built up $12,000 just in my bank account in South Africa over the period of a year. And then I started paying off a little bit, just the interest. And one day I just called them up and said, listen, I have $12,000. I want to pay this off. Will you allow me And would you write off the $36,000? And guess what? They were absolutely excited, right? So I did that with credit card companies. I did that a lot. And I started by paying off the smallest debt, right? And then the second thing, I decided to chuck out the traditional budget of income less expenses, and I started spending according to my values. So that was super important because it was very stressful to try and make my budget fit into my life, right? So of trying to make my life fit into a budget, so I started to make my budget fit my life. And the third thing is I created extra streams of income. So every stream of income that I had was, the second stream of income was used to pay off the second stream of income was used to pay off the debt. And when I got the part-time job, that part-time job was used to sustain my daily living. So I got a part-time job and I kept running Wealthy Money. All the money from Wealthy Money went to pay off the debt. And then the last thing I did was I started investing 200 Rand a month. And you can actually do that on the JSE, right? You can do that with exchange traded funds, and you can even do that with unit trusts. So I just started off with what I had. What I had at the time, after paying off all my debts, because I had so much debt, right? And a lot of it was in different currencies. I started just paying off, I started investing 200 Rand a month. And over time, the more debt that I paid off, all the money that I was using to pay off the debt, I started to use to just pay off, to start investing. So I started putting all that money into savings, into investing. And yeah, that is my story. And I hope you guys really got benefit from that. Thank you so much for joining today. And please refer to the polling. You'll see that there's a question about my presentation today. Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Azania.
Much love to you, Vangile. Thank you so much. There's the question, by the way. Answer this question in the chat box. Name the one belief that stops us from saving and investing. Don't you just love Vangile? The way she talks about money, the vulnerability with which she does it, I think gives us permission. It gives all of us the courage to confront the things that nag us, the things that we fail to do when it comes to our money, and hopefully start to take action to correct it, much like she did, tackling that debt head on. So before we move on to our next speaker, we have a message from one of our sponsors. And the first one is Core Shares. Core Shares is an investment partner that believes in the power and simplicity of index investing. Here's a message from Gugulethu Mfuphi.
Hello, I'm on my way. One of the biggest developments in the investment industry in recent years has been the growth in popularity of passive investing. Instead of paying to have their money actively managed, investors are increasingly opting for index funds, which are considerably cheaper. Hi, how are you? And aim to capture the returns of an entire market by tracking an index.
Yeah, the term passive investing, I think it's not a very good term for most people to understand, because it sounds like you're standing in the corner, or you're not participating, or you're somehow missing out. And that's bringing, that evokes emotions, negative emotions. I like to call, rather than call it passive investing, I call it smart investing, the kind of no regrets investing, where I've minimized the moving parts. I've minimized the decisions I have to make, I've minimized the cost, and I've maximized the chance of me getting the returns from capitalism, which are there for the taking. A passive portfolio can go down just as well as it can go up. And people talk about when stock markets are racing, that's great, but what about when they fall? Well, active funds fall, if not the same, if not more, because of the bets that they're taking. But I think rather than use the word passive, let's use the word smart investing. And what is smart investing? Smart investing is minimizing the moving parts and maximizing the chance and the amount that you're going to get from participating as an investor in capitalism.
Broadly speaking, the case for passive investing is based on two related market theories, the random walk and the efficient market hypothesis.
The random walk hypothesis is really crucial for investors to understand. It in essence says that the current price includes all the information we currently know and actually the impact of that information on the future. And so what that really says is now the change in price in the future has to do with new information that is random and unpredictable by definition. Nobody knows tomorrow's news. So efficient markets has to do again with this idea that all the known information and news is currently embedded in the stock market prices. And the real implication of that is that prices are fair.
If you agree that markets are mostly efficient and that future price movements are unpredictable, index funds are the logical choice. But the biggest advantage of using them is the cost.
You could buy an index fund for about 20 basis points. That's another way of saying about a fifth of 1%. For an active fund, you could be looking at management fees of anything between 75 to 100 basis points. But with transaction fees, costs, and additional charges, you could easily be paying up to 200 basis points. That's 10 times the cost of an index fund.
Over the course of an investing lifetime, that can make a huge difference.
We talk about the power of compounding, and of course on the positive side, the compounding of investment returns is great, but costs also compound, and they compound to the negative side. So the bigger the costs, the bigger the negative impact on the ultimate investment value over time. I like to think about this in terms of what proportion is my costs of the total investment return that I get. Because in days when we achieved 20 to 30% returns in our market, it was almost easy to absorb 2 to 3% costs. But where we are now, single-digit returns, suddenly those 2 to 3% returns are a big chunk out of the ultimate investment return that you compound over time. And that's why costs are even more important in a low-return environment.
Cost is really the only known when investing. You know what you're going to pay, you don't know what you're going to get. We've done work both locally and globally, and the thesis holds true for both. In the local market, there's a very clear relationship between the amount that you pay for investment and the subsequent performance. The lower the cost, the better the subsequent performance has been.
In the US, there have been huge outflows of money from actively managed funds and into low-cost index funds. In South Africa too, more and more investors are now choosing to take the passive route as concern grows about the performance of active managers and the industry's unwillingness to introduce lower, more transparent fees for active funds.
Finally, what does the world's most famous active investor, Warren Buffett, make of index funds? He loves them.
In his February 2017 letter to Berkshire Hathaway shareholders, he was hugely critical of active managers, hedge fund managers in particular, and of the fees they charge. Both large and small investors, he said, should stick with low-cost index funds.
Thank you so much to Gugulethu Mfuphi, as well as the team from Core Shares, hugely informative. But next we have a word from the home of exchange traded funds, ETF SA, with Nerina Visser, who's one of the doyens of ETFs in South Africa.
Welcome to She Invests 2020. I'm Nerina Visser, and it's my pleasure to introduce you to ETF SA, the home of exchange traded funds. And as the name suggests, we are Exchange Traded Funds South Africa. Well done for participating in She Invests. It shows that you are serious about finances, to learn more about investments, and to create a wealthier you. I have no doubt that you will come to the end of the live sessions today feeling inspired and ready to take action. But you may also feel somewhat overwhelmed by all the jargon, all the options, information overload, and then may even feel paralyzed from taking the next step. So I would like to take the next few minutes to tell you a bit about ETF SA, who we are, what we do, and most importantly, how we can help you. I will start by telling you who we are not. We are not ETF issuers. We are not a Satrix or a Core Shares or Ashburton or Cloud Atlas, or APSO issues ETFs under the New Funds brand name, or Signia and their brand name, iTrix, or Standard Bank and StandUp, who issue ETFs under the brand name One Invest. So no, we can't list new ETFs or bring new ETFs to the market, as we are often requested to do. We are not stockbrokers like Easy Equities or Standard Bank Online Share Trading or any of the many other online stockbroking platforms. We can't tell you anything about individual shares. We don't sell policies, not insurance, not funeral, not life assurance or medical aid. We are not traders. We are not speculators. We can't help you with forex trading or some other get-rich-quick scheme, or should I rather say scam. So then what and who are we? We are here to help investors. Our systems and our processes are geared to help you build wealth on a sustainable basis over the long term. We are financial advisors registered to offer intermediary services to investors. We are discretionary investment managers and may operate under mandate from our clients to help them meet their investment goals and objectives. And we do so for many different types of investments: tax-free, discretionary or regular investments, retirement annuities, living annuities. And we do so here in South Africa and also offshore. Our website is the primary information portal for all things related to ETFs on the JSE. So if you want to learn and be empowered to take control of your financial well-being and your wealth destiny, you should speak to us. We are not a call center. You will deal with individuals by name: Wendy for tax-free investments, Corsi for discretionary investments, Susan for retirement and living annuities, Jenna Lee for our managed portfolio service. We pride ourselves on our education, empowering our clients with knowledge and insight to help them make good investment decisions. And if you need advice, Mike Brown and I are licensed to give it to you, something which neither the ETF issuers nor the stockbrokers can do. We are simply the ETF specialists. So reach out to us today. Our website is etfsa.co.za, or you can send us an email to info@etfsa.co.za to get started. Find us on your favorite social media platform. And of course, we are right here on the She Invests Flock platform, ready to answer your questions and help you take not just your next step or your first step, but every next step on this exciting journey. Welcome to the new, empowered, informed, and enriched you.
Thank you so much to Nerina Visser. And she's so right. Some of the jargon can really throw you off and just leave you confused, unsure about exactly what the terminology means. In fact, some of you in the chat function are raising these questions, which we hopefully will get to answer a little bit later, give you a little bit more clarity. But I just want to assure you that the JSE team is contacting all the names that were mentioned as part of that first wave of prizes. There was just a lag in communications regarding the winners. And so So it'll be better in the next round, I assure you. So keep communicating with us. You can also tweet and share insights from this session. It's JSE She Invests. Thank you to Nerina Visser, and she will be back for a panel discussion a little bit later on when we talk about how to invest. So do you know that feeling of having more month than money left? You know, so much more to do in the month with dollar balance. You know that feeling, right? Well, 76% of South Africans run out of money before the end of the month. And women are under the most pressure, with 66% of us being financially responsible for the entire family, while facing a gender pay gap of 27% on average in the workplace. And only 4% of us are able to put money aside for things like retirement, for children's education, or for investments or emergencies. All of this is according to the Worldwide Works research. These results were published last year. But we also can't forget that life expectancy, the estimates of birth for 2020 say that women live longer than men. So that means that we have to plan, we have to prepare, we have to invest wisely. And so with that in mind, it's time for us to step into our first panel for this conference. And they're going to be addressing the very real world matters, these real world money matters that we're confronted with. Adele Hatting is the JSE Manager for Business Development and Exchange Traded Products. She's responsible for increasing primary market activity through bringing new issues and specialist product issuances to the exchange. She also manages strategic relationships with key stakeholders in the ETP market. So here's Adele with her panel to discuss how we can balance life's financial demands and still have a life. Adele, over to you and your panel.
Thank you so much, Azam. Warm welcome to everyone this morning. It's fantastic to see so many questions flying and people hungry for information. So the reality is that many South Africans struggle with the idea of saving and investing. And very often the reasons are either deep-seated or very complex or both. Now, with the COVID economic environment that we're all facing, households are facing savings and investing even more challenging. So the idea of investing actually becomes almost a pipe dream. Today, I'm joined by Candice Payne and Zama Dikana, who's going to help me unpack some really practical tips on how South Africans can be better equipped when planning their finances. So I'm first going to do an intro of Candice's long-standing career, which spans over more than 20 years in the financial services industry, both locally and internationally. During her many years at Sanlam Investments, she ran their retail business successfully. She also headed up Glacier Research whilst with this list. She is an independent financial advisor and consults widely to the asset management industry as a strategist. Very welcome, Candice. And then joining her is Zama Dikana, who joined Old Mutual in 2014 as a broker consultant in the broker distribution business. He then moved on to become an investment specialist at Old Mutual Wealth before joining Old Mutual's retail savings and income business as a business development manager. And he's particularly passionate about people, economics, investments, and financial planning. Thank you so much for joining me this morning. It's great to have you here.
Thanks, Adele.
Morning, ladies.
Welcome. So I suppose the best place to start would be to talk about our own personal budgets. Now, times are getting a lot tougher for many South Africans, and they are feeling highly stressed, particularly when I'm seeing all the chats that are flying today, lots of anxiety. People don't know how to go about planning their budgets. So I'd like to understand from you, Candice and Zama, what do you see from South African spending behaviors and their attitudes towards money, and how has that changed since lockdown started? Maybe Candice, you can kick off for us.
Thanks, Adele. I think that it's been a really tough time for South Africans. They've had to come to reckoning with their budgets. Many people have lost their jobs. Many people have lost their income streams. And I think people are starting to realize what is important and what is necessary in the way that they spend. They're also realizing that their emergency funds are incredibly important. And people who didn't have them are trying to understand how they can get an emergency fund together for the next time that they're in hardship. So I think that the She Invest platform is a wonderful place for people to learn how to manage their entire budget and to be in a better position when hardship hits going forward.
Thanks, Candice.
Morning, ladies. Thanks, Candice. Well, firstly, it's a great privilege to be spending some time with all of you this morning. I would just like to kick off by saying a happy Women's Day to all the ladies that are watching. And yeah, I really hope that you all get spoiled today, and that you are reminded that you are the glue that holds many of our homes and communities together. If we look at the economic impact of COVID, well, South Africans were already under a lot of financial pressure even before the lockdown started. I mean, if we look at the GDP numbers, we were already backtracking even before the lockdown. At Old Mutual, we have what we call our Savings and Investment Monitor that we release every year in July. And what this study aims to do is to assess the financial circumstances of South African metropolitan households specifically. So this year, the study was conducted during the lockdown, specifically to try to assess the impact that COVID-19 has had on South African households. So I'm just if we look at some of those key findings quickly, in this year's study, we see that 48% of the participants were not happy with their financial situation. In fact, their financial situation had worsened compared to 2019. 52% of the participants dipped into their savings to make ends meet, and this number increased from 23% in 2019. So this tells us quite a lot about the circumstances of many South African homes. But however, on the positive, only 8% of the people that participated in our study completely lost their income. So we can say that the lockdown has also had some kind of a positive effect also. And then also on the other hand, we see that there are people that have not lost their income during this time. And many of those people are now paying less on their home loans and vehicle repayments due to the big drops in interest rates this year. So those people also have access to a lot of cheap debt at the moment, which can be very, very tempting. And we'll talk about that. So yeah, so for a lot of people also they are traveling less now, and due to the lockdown restrictions, people are not going out as often as they used to. So for some South African households, the lockdown has actually been better. But I think psychologically, more than anything, the lockdown has been quite strenuous.
Thank you, Zaman. Oh, it's absolutely so true. And it's actually so difficult, you know, Candice, particularly when we try and balance our income and our expenses and still try to put money aside for a rainy day, like you had mentioned, an emergency fund. And just the thought of that can be so overwhelming. And again, anxiety-ridden, very anxious. But I want to believe that there has to be a practical solution to planning our budgets. And I think there is. And it's called the 50-20-30 budget rule. Now, I know the idea of a budget for some is completely foreign. Many of us don't know how to put a budget together. Many of us think a budget is actually a target. So as opposed to putting money aside, I'd rather spend all the money that I have. But maybe you can take us through what these different buckets mean, the 50-20-30 budget rule.
Adele, I agree with you. Many find budgeting very daunting, and it isn't a target. So in its simplest form, you need to spend less than you earn and save the rest. We all know that. But how do you actually do that? And that's where the 50-30-20 rule comes in. So I wish this was my brilliant idea, but it isn't. This was set up by Elizabeth Warren, who's a US Senator. And what she said is that 50% of your after-tax income needs to be spent on your needs. So things that would significantly impact your lifestyle if they weren't there. So they are things like your rent or your mortgage payments, transportation or car payments, groceries, insurance, electricity, water. So things that you pay for that really are there to sustain life. Those really are your needs. Then we move on, and also, sorry, in the needs bucket are sort of rudimentary clothing allowances, those sorts of things, school fees, those are things that you have to pay. Then there's the next 30% of your after-tax money, which should be spent on wants. And this is where it gets a bit tricky, because wants are not extravagances or luxuries. They really are things that if you didn't have, it wouldn't really change the quality of your life. So for example, a gym membership. If you cannot afford a gym membership, you can actually find ways to exercise for free. It's the luxuries in your shopping basket that if you didn't have them, you wouldn't die, but you do still need to eat. It's the eating out, it's the shopping trips, it's the holidays. These are your wants. So it's your discretionary spend. And then we get to what is arguably the most important bucket, which is the savings bucket, which should be 20% of your after-tax income. So savings, you need to split into paying down debt and then saving. So the debt that you have, hopefully, is good debt that it's money that you're spending on assets that are actually appreciating, like your home. But if you do have car payments or credit card debt that you need to pay down, the 20% needs to cover some of that. And then what is left has to go to retirement savings, your tax-free savings account, and of course this emergency fund that we know that has become incredibly important to all of us. So you really do need to get rid of the debt. And I think Vangile did a wonderful presentation on how to approach your debt and how to think about it. But get rid of that debt. Get rid of the bad debt. Your house is not a bad debt. And in fact, the minimum payment on your mortgage actually is in the needs section. Anything extra is in the savings section. So that's a great way to think about how to manage your money, is the 50-30-20 rule. And we can also talk about how to get into those buckets, because it's not easy from the get-go to be able to have those buckets in place on day one.
Thanks, Candace. And I think that maybe just segues into the next step question. What are some of the realistic steps that South Africans can take to now bucket their finances into the must-haves, the wants, and then the savings? Maybe, Candace, you can kick off with a few ideas and realistic steps, and then Zama, please join in and share your thoughts on that as well.
So the way that Elizabeth Warren described the buckets is kind of like marshmallows. It may not be an exact 50%, an exact 30%, an exact 20% from the get-go, but you need to try and move into those ratios with your money. And it may mean cutting down on expenses. So trying to get what is essentially your needs into 50% of your after-tax income can be difficult. And it might mean that you actually start downscaling. So maybe moving out of that expensive apartment, changing schools, selling that really expensive car, and downgrading so that you do ultimately have money to save. The wants bit is a little bit easier. That really is just about spending mindfully, kind of pulling your belt in. Because the big focus has to be on that 20%, that saving, because the saving is for your future. That really is the future that you're dreaming of. That's the security that Vangile spoke about. It's the freedom that she spoke about, knowing that you actually have a positive bank balance or a positive investment portfolio. And if you feel like you're earning too little, you need to think about ways to invest in yourself. Do you need to do another course? Do you need to study? Do you need to change jobs? You need to negotiate with your employer. It's a really difficult time to be having those discussions, but you need to be thinking about your future and how you can increase your own earnings potential so that you can get your own finances into the 50-30-20 buckets.
Thanks, Candace.
I mean, I can only add to what Candace said, and I think that a proper way of sticking to your budget is probably the most powerful tool if you want to start saving or investing money. I mean, once you have command over your budget and spending habits, it will be much easier to bucket your finances. I always say to people that if a person cannot commit to sticking to their budgets or controlling their habits, their spending habits, it will be very difficult for that person to commit to a savings or investment goal. Because once your money is in the market, I'm sure Candace will know, once your money is in the markets, you're going to have to do a lot of controlling of emotions and all of that. So I think that a very practical way to start is by sitting down with your payslip, and I think Vangile alluded to something very similar. Sit down with your payslip to see how much money is coming in, and then draw up a budget according to your payslip. And Candace spoke about it, and make sure that you do not spend more than what you are earning, because that's a basic principle that if you're spending more than what you're earning, then it is going to be very difficult for you to accumulate wealth because you will always be in the red. And then I think a very important thing is and Vangile also spoke about it, that looking at your bank statement, I would say, I think you ladies said once every month, just to reconcile your pay slip and your budget to see, okay, this was my pay slip and this was what was coming in. This was my budget that I put together, and then just reconcile it with your bank statement to see, or to make sure if you have been spending according to your money that's coming in and your budget. And I think a very important thing that Candace also mentioned is investing in yourself, because there's no limit in terms of what you are earning. If you are earning X amount now, there's nothing that is stopping you from investing in yourself to earn more, or negotiating with your employer to earn more, maybe even finding a second stream of income, like Vangile said, to increase your income. Because I think if you are someone that is already over indebted, one way to try to tame that, or to fix that, would be to get more money coming in. And then obviously, I think a very big one is if you can stick to your budget and control your emotions and spending habits, you'll go a very long way in investing and saving.
Thanks, Zama. It's so true. I mean, so it's really about being honest with ourselves, really, like what we spend, what we really can spend on, and what we really shouldn't be spending money on. So that's the honesty aspect as well. And then, interesting enough, you mentioned investing in yourself, which is something I think many women don't do. So that's a fantastic point, Zaman. Maybe we can add on that. So now imagine it's, I've got a really tough financial situation. I get a phone call from the bank. Hey, Zama, we're seeing that maybe you want to up your credit card limit. Oh, wait a minute, here's another credit card. Or you get a phone call from a friend. Hey, my friend, things are a bit tight this month. Can you spare some cash? These are difficult situations to be in. What should you do? How do I tell that friend, no, I actually cannot give you the money this month? Well, listen, Mr. Bank Manager, absolutely no ways am I going to up my credit card limit. What do I do in those situations?
Well, I think if it has been a tough month financially and the bank calls to offer you another credit card, please put the phone down. But that's a very good question that you're asking, because especially in the environment that we're in now, we're in a low interest environment, so interest rates are very low. So there's a lot of cheap debt available to people, and the temptation is very high to take on the cheap debt. However, it is never a good idea to use credit to fix cash flow problems, because you're just creating another problem. So the question is, or the question just emphasizes the importance of budgeting and sticking to your budget. However, within your budget, I think something that is very important is to have some kind of an emergency fund. We've been talking about it quite a bit this morning also, for those months when the unforeseen expenses come up that you didn't budget for. For instance, when budgeting, it is also very important to leave cash flow room in your budget. I mean, for example, if you're earning 10,000 Rand and your expenses are 10,000 Rand and you haven't put any money away, if an unforeseen expense comes up, that means that you will have to use credit to use or to spend on that expense, because you didn't budget for it. So ideally, what you would want is you would want some room in your budget for those unforeseen circumstances. Going back to the 50-30-20 budgeting rule that Candace was talking about, I think a very important thing also is that if you are earning, let's say you're earning 10,000 Rand, I think ideally what you would want is your expenses to be 9,000 Rand after you have saved money, so that if an unforeseen expense comes up, you do have money in your cash flow to sort that out without you having to use credit. So I think that it is very important to you need to learn to control your emotions and just be committed to your budget and the financial plan that you have.
Absolutely, it's about that discipline. It's about loving yourself as well, right?
Yeah. Sorry, and something I also forgot to mention there was that, and something else about the debt that you were mentioning is that one thing about credit, especially credit cards or store accounts, is that it can spiral out of control very quickly. So if your budget is already very negative, and you have those small debts that can spiral out of control, that are actually driven by your emotions, I mean, you can find yourself paying off debt for quite a long time.
For a very long time. Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to look and see whether we have any questions at the moment. Let's see here. Yeah, absolutely. Don't use your credits to fix your cash flow problems. Absolutely. I don't see any questions right now, but maybe Candice, if you can maybe just end off first, because we have about a minute or so to go.
Adele, there's a very important point I'd like to make as we do end off. We as women share everything with our friends, with our families, with our mothers, but we don't normally talk about money. And I would like to encourage women to talk to each other about money, about the hardships, about where they're spending. We need support if we're going to stick to the 50-30-20 rule. We need support if we're going to be saving. So when you're in that changing room and you're sending all your friends photos of that new dress, you want one of them to come back and say, hey, you said you weren't spending. Take that dress off and get out of that shop. So the more that you have support in this process, the more you will be able to save, because people will keep you honest to the process, especially if you've committed to it. It's a bit like being on a diet. Everyone knows you're on a diet, they don't bring you cake. Same story. You don't want to spend the money, get people to help you in that process. I'd encourage people talking more about money and not keeping it as such a taboo subject.
That is such great advice. Absolutely, Candice. It's such an intricate part of our lives, using money. We should be talking more about it, and that accountability spot on. So if people want to know more about, budgeting, do you have any financial resources maybe that we can go and visit, websites that you can suggest, maybe Instagram followers, anything would be fantastic.
There's fantastic. So Simon Brown, who's coming on later in the She Invest show, runs a website called Just One Lap. Fantastic advice there. He also has a podcast. Listen to that. There are a couple of financial influencers on Twitter. One of them is Stealthy Wealth. He does all the calculations for you. Go and have a look at that. Maya Fisher French. It is overwhelming and there's a lot of information, but the more that you read, one day you'll just realize you have this kind of critical mass and you kind of understand where your money must go. So just read, look at social media. There's fantastic resources out there to help you save your money and not spend it.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Candice and Zama, for your time this morning. If anyone would like to have any questions answered, please feel free to post your questions on the stage or on the event tab. We'll try and respond to those questions as the event unfolds. Also visit the Expo stands. There are great resources there. Speak to the brokers. ETFSA is there, Women in ETFs. Please join. Let's have a conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you, Adele. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Cheers, everyone.
That was a fantastic panel. Really invaluable advice. Thank you to Adele, to Candice, as well as Zama. I've been taking notes on the side. I'll give a summary at the end, but you can tweet, you can share all of this that you're experiencing on your timelines, on Facebook, on Twitter, and use the hashtag JSE She Invests, and we'll be able to see the things that have made the most impact on you. But how handy was that advice about how to approach our budgets? The 50, 20, and 30 budget rule. It just puts things in these buckets. It keeps you on track. It keeps you you have a sense of where your money is going and whether it's truly working for you. Keeping an eye on the chat that's going on as well. Maybe you missed this comment from Tembekile Ntlabati. I just wanted to approach. I think it's one of those that we need to remember. She posted to say that my dad used to tell us not to live on a champagne life with a Coke salary. Some wise words from her father, but absolutely true. Don't live a champagne life on a Coke salary. Let's be real about our income and, of course, start to curb our spending habits. So I'll keep sharing these little nuggets, these gems that you're dropping, and we'll give you a summary at the end when we conclude our session. Thank you. Adele will be back with another session, so she'll be on your screen in no time at all. So let's listen to a message from a company that is in the business of helping people and companies do great things with their money, and they can do the same for you. Here is John Manyike with a message from Old Mutual.
My name is John Manyike. I'm head of financial education at Old Mutual. The global pandemic is causing havoc on many economies around the world, including our personal finances. There's a rising cost of debt because of people making arrangements. But overall, people are grappling with this question, should I be focusing on paying off my debts or should I actually be saving? My answer is simple. Life is not made in black and white. There are a lot of gray areas. So we need to appreciate the fact that time waits for no one. And when it comes to saving and investing, you have to understand that markets will be volatile from time to time, especially during times of uncertainty. But markets do recover. So, what I would like to encourage you is stay focused on your investment goals, and understand the different asset classes. And this you can achieve through partnering with a financial advisor. So you can actually have an intimate understanding of the world of investment, including your appetite to risk. And also for you to decide really in which asset class you want to really focus on. So I want to take this opportunity to encourage everyone to apply a lot of patience, especially during this period. Be patient, stay focused on your goals, stay focused on your future. And then, of course, the golden rule when it comes to savings and investing is don't put all your eggs in one basket.
Thank you so much to John and the team from Old Mutual. In fact, Old Mutual has made sure that you get to walk away with a few prizes today. So thank you to Old Mutual for that. But as we wrap our first hour, here is Anthea Gardner from Easy Equities.
Most of us have heard about or read the research that shows how women go into a job interview wondering whether they're good enough, and men go into the interview wondering if the job is good enough for them. If you haven't yet heard about this curious phenomenon, you can read all about it in a research paper entitled The Gender Gap in Self-Promotion. It's unfortunate for many of us, but the reality is that self-promotion is part of your toolbox in career advancement. And I say us because I'm not a natural self-promoter. I still have to be quite conscious and thoughtful about the process, which takes time away from my day job of being an asset manager, researching, making decisions about where to invest people's money, and giving sound financial advice. I've worked in a couple of global investment banks and one development bank around the world, and my experience is that these financial institutions, including asset management, are traditionally highly testosterone-fueled and fairly aggressive. Actually, that sentence alone conveys this discrepancy. I say aggressive, most of the men I know would say just ambitious. In fact, when I was working on the trading floor at Morgan Stanley in London, I used to joke with my friends that every morning while putting on my makeup, getting ready for work, I used to look at myself in the mirror and tell myself that I'm putting on my war paint because I had to act stronger, braver, and more confident than I actually felt. And worse yet, I see it all the time when I interact with the newbies in our industry. The men will confidently tell me who they are, what they do, and how much they know, while the women who engage with me will seek advice. Now, I'm not a psychologist, so I don't know that if behind those brave and confident exteriors, men are actually equally insecure. But what I do notice is that men inevitably do better in my industry because they appear more confident and ambitious. They're not afraid to go for the top position. The way I see it, it's as if women are waiting for someone to give them permission to be ambitious and shoot for the stars. It's also weird how we as women often see being nice or asking for help as a way for people to like us. It really doesn't help playing small, being the nice girl, or appeasing other people to show that you're better than everyone else and deserve the promotion. Now, make no mistake, this is not a call for all women to become arrogant. In fact, I want to warn against the Dunning-Kruger effect, which is a term used to explain the occurrence of cognitive bias in which poor performance greatly overestimate their abilities or their knowledge. If you are going to make it in this highly competitive industry, then self-promotion is only part of the game. And self-promotion is a lot easier when you work from a place of knowledge and integrity. I do understand why people like Sheryl Sandberg promote the fake it until you make it aphorism, which, by the way, I believe was first uttered by a man called Alfred Adler. Sandberg promotes it because As I said at the beginning, in general, women appear to lack the self-confidence that most men portray, even with the same knowledge. But the problem with faking it until you make it is that inevitably it leads to more dysfunction as you end up knowing you're faking it and therefore doubt yourself even more. And so the answer, I believe, is to underpin your self-promotion with knowledge and integrity. I don't spend a lot of my time reading or listening to spiritual verse, but I came across a quote a couple of months ago by spiritual writer and wellness educator Lala Delia that somehow just stuck with me. She remembered who she was, and the game changed. So last word from me, you don't need permission to aim for your moonshot. It's out there for the taking.
What an incredible message. Andrea, thank you so much. You seem to have struck a chord with our delegates and what you're saying there, that was so achievements. We're so afraid not to be liked, you know, and sadly, when women are assertive, their likability goes down. And when we, and that's the thing, that we do need to be assertive to be able to put our hand up to ask for higher pay, but at the same time, there's a chance that your likability might drop. And so society's perception as well needs to change. Thank you so much to Andrea Gardner there from Easy Equities for that message. Welcome back, everybody. If you went to the exhibition side of life, come back to the conference side of life, because we're continuing with our program now. And if you've just returned, welcome back. And so we pick up now by carrying on with another panel. So earlier on, we looked at our everyday money management. It's time for us now to talk about investing. So Adele is back, as you can see, she's back with us. And she's going to be heading a panel that looks into some of the more common concerns and worries that beginner investors have. I've been monitoring your questions, like some of the terminology, lots of questions coming in from many beginners about how do you do this? So that's the veil we would like to remove. So many beginners have a lot of worries about investing. We'll talk as well about what you can consider as your investment goals, and we'll look at some of the investment vehicles that are available to you, and of course, their affordability. Adele, to you and your panel.
Thank you, Azania. Right, so I think we're going to remove that veil, to remove that mystery. Now, following the last panel that we have, we now know that there are practical tips in budgeting and bucketing our finances into must-haves, what we must pay, what we want, and then our savings. Now, I think we're going to delve into the savings bit a bit more now. So the next panel, we're going to talk about the steps that South Africans can take to start their investment journey. And I'm joined by Nerina Visser and Simon Brown. Very welcome, both of you. Doing a brief intro quickly, Nerina is an ETF strategist and advisor with a specialist focus on exchange-traded products and benchmark indices. She is a director of the ETFSA Portfolio Management Company, serves as president on the board of the CFA Society South Africa, and as chairperson of the ETF Standing Committee. She is a regular market commentator in the media and a seasoned speaker. Simon has also been involved in the market since the 80s, is the founder of Just One Lap and a frequent market commentator. He also hosts MoneyWeb Now every weekday morning, and The Week That Was every Friday on Business Day TV, as well as he writes a column regularly in FinWeek. So let's kick off here. Investing sounds simple on paper. The reality is it's anything but. Emotions are such an intricate part of our relationship with money, and we've seen all the comments come through, you know, anxiety, scared, you know, we associate our wealth with our wealth. But what are some of the common fears that investors have, and what are the investor behaviors that you've seen over the years, not especially maybe since lockdown, and is it realistic to calm these fears? Maybe Simon, you can kick off, and Nerina, please join in.
Thanks, Adele, and welcome to everyone. I think there's broadly two fears that we see in the world, particularly around money generally, but finance in particular. And I think it's fear and it's greed. And the fear is that we're scared of losing our money. And in the short term, the stock market is a volatile place. And what I mean by that piece of jargon, as we saw back in March, is sometimes the stock market falls. It falls aggressively, it falls quickly. And if you're watching it minute by minute, it is a terrifying experience. But you need to step back and understand that markets are actually a long-term process. And if we sort of stop looking minute by minute and maybe turn off some of the TV or the radio at times, we're better served by understanding that stock markets generate wealth over time. And that's the key point. That kind of plays into the second emotion, which is greed. And, particularly when markets are falling and then they rush back up. And we want to be rich by the weekend. We don't mind which weekend, but as long as it's August. And the truth of the matter is, we're not getting rich, in a hurry. It is a process. It's a lengthy process. It's going to take some time. And we as individuals, if we start that process, we benefit from it. The huge benefits are going to be the future generations, our children, who not only do we help them be better in touch with their money, their finances, and their investing, but of course, we're going to be in a better place. And hopefully, when we pass on, we can leave a legacy to the future generations. So they're strong emotions, but I think we can manage it with expectation. We can manage it by realizing that this is something that's going to take some time. There is no quick fix to getting rich in a hurry.
So being disciplined.
Yeah. I can certainly add to that. I think some of the comments that we saw is this fear, that people have this fear of investing and yet they feel much more comfortable saving. So let's just focus a little bit on what is the difference between saving and investing. And in simplest terms, I'm going to say that saving is when you actually just leave money in the bank, in a savings account of some sort. And then we are expecting to earn a certain interest rate, a rate of return. It feels very safe. It feels as though I'm very certain in terms of what my return will be, in terms of that interest rate is quoted up front and so on. But the reality is that the interest rate that you can earn on savings, especially after tax and inflation is taken into consideration, is actually less than, it's actually a negative number. So the real rate of return after you take inflation into consideration, it actually is a guaranteed way of getting poorer. So this idea that it feels safe to just save, just to have your money sitting in the bank account, is actually a bit of an anomaly because you are guaranteed to get poorer in real terms. Investing, on the other hand, is exposing your money, giving your money the ability to actually grow with capital over time. And it's the time factor that Simon was referring to there. It is the variability of investment prices and so on, the ability that it can go up and down, that also creates that opportunity for the money that you have in investments in the market to grow faster than inflation over time. And it is that aspect of investment that is so attractive and so necessary for us. So I think when we talk about the fear of investing, we need to ask ourselves, what is it that I'm actually afraid of? Is it that I'm afraid that somebody's going to take my money and run away with it? And certainly there's no shortage of scams around. And those are ones that we do need to be really afraid of. But when we are talking about investments, where you are investing on the JSE, on a stock exchange, where you are investing with a registered financial services provider, you cannot lose all of your money. The value of your investment in the shorter term can decline, but it's that ability for it to move, to be negative over the shorter term, that allows it to grow faster over the longer term. And that's not a risk. That is something that we should embrace. And when you see that value also declining a little bit, think about it like you do when there's a sale on at your favorite shop. The market is on sale. It's a discount. I'm actually able to invest more and generate and get that growth over the longer term. So ask yourself, what is it that you're really afraid of? As Simon says, manage your expectations, and then really there's nothing to be afraid of.
Thank you, Nerina. Absolutely. And I think very often we don't talk enough about inflation and how powerful inflation can be. You buy a bread today for $20, next year is going to cost you 25 Rand, and yet your salary hasn't increased. So I think, again, making your money work for you where the returns are much greater than the rate of inflation, I think is also something that people need to keep in mind. So you were talking about, Nerina, about different accounts, and maybe Simon, you can kick off this conversation a little bit. There are so many accounts. I think people have spoken about tax-free savings account, online trading accounts, you name it. Maybe you can take us through some of those different types that are out there and how do they compare with each other?
So let's step right back for a second. In the one sense, there's sort of managed versus self-managed. So you could get an expert such as Nerina. You can go to her platform, and her and her team will manage on your behalf. And that, careful who you pick. I mean, let's be quite clear about that. If you find them on Facebook, maybe not the best idea, particularly if they're promising you'll be rich in a hurry. And that's a perfectly adequate way to do it, where you essentially you engage and you say, this is what I'm looking to achieve. This is my timeline. You sign a mandate and you've got the protection in place from the FSCA and the like, and that money then gets managed. And in many cases, then it's a sort of what's the underlying part. And one of the most popular, and it was introduced by the then finance minister in 2015, Nhlanhla Nene, which is the tax-free savings account. And the beauty of that, Nerina was speaking a moment ago, and she talked about money in the bank, and part of that drag being inflation. The other part of that drag, truthfully, being tax. And in a tax-free account, and there's limitations around it, but those tax-free accounts, you don't pay any tax on the profit. So when you come back in 10, 20, maybe even 30 years' time, and you've made a profit, it is all yours. There is no stars coming to take their slice. And in the early days, that extra profit that you're making is not significant, but you give it a decade or two, and that tax saving becomes significant. So we typically say to people, start with a tax-free savings account. Now, if you've got a job in a corporate, you've probably got a pension or a retirement, and those will be Reg 28 jargon, but just the way it's structured. And those are a great place as well, just to be starting. It's about doing it. And then you've got the tax-free. And once you've hit those limits, and if you're one of those very fortunate people who can max out your pension and max out your tax-free account, then you can start looking at discretionary and start making some decisions about where you want to invest sort of beyond that. But, initially, keep it simple. Keep it into an exchange-traded fund, an ETF. Keep it into a tax-free account. And again, it goes back to, give it time. And if you're totally thinking this is all too complicated, there are people out there who are the experts and who have the qualifications and who are able to assist you. You don't have to do this as a DIY process.
Fantastic. Thank you, Simon. I think tax-free savings accounts are phenomenal. I have one myself. I've opened one for my daughter as well, because I also recognize, that I'm building wealth for her as well. And with the tax-free savings accounts, there's an annual contribution of 36,000 Rand that you can make. That does not make that you have to contribute 36,000 Rand every year to your account. You contribute what you can afford, what you can put aside. And I think it's such a great tool for beginner investors, particularly if you can also use ETFs, which tax-free savings accounts allow for the majority of ETFs listed on the JSE. And maybe that, Nerina, we can segue into that quickly, and let's talk about, and I have my accounts, but what do I put inside my account? Single shares. Maybe you can unpack each of those for us, please.
Sure. I think you make such an important point there, Adele, that we need to differentiate between these types of accounts that one might have, and then where do I actually decide in terms of the investment. So we often have that people might come to us and say, I want to buy a tax-free ETF. You cannot buy a tax-free ETF. You open a tax-free account and then you buy ETFs into that account. So in terms of the types of investments that you can do in these different accounts, let's quickly talk about the three sort of major components, being tax-free accounts, retirement type savings, and then discretionary investments. Now, the tax-free accounts, there are some limitations, as Simon had said, not just in terms of what the maximum amount is that you can contribute, but one of the rules is that you can only invest in CIS funds, collective investment schemes, better known also as unit trusts. The good news is that the majority of ETFs that are listed on the JSE are also unit trusts. I saw earlier there was a question, somebody asked, what's the difference between an ETF and a unit trust? Well, most ETFs are also unit trusts, the difference being that you buy them on the stock exchange and they're a lot cheaper, a lot more cost effective than most of your actively managed unit trusts. So the starting point there is that you can only buy ETFs or unit trusts inside a tax-free account. You cannot buy individual shares. So you cannot go and buy that favorite hot stock share that you're so keen on in your tax-free account. So the tax-free account being your first and most important one, use that really to build up wealth over the long term. As you said, not just for yourself, for your children, for your partner, everybody in South Africa. It doesn't matter how young or how old you are. You don't even have to be a registered taxpayer to qualify for a tax-free investment account. Retirement accounts, whether that is your occupational pension or provident fund or whether it's your own retirement annuity fund, those are managed on a pooled basis, meaning that there would be somebody else making the investment decisions for that fund. So you as the investor at best has the ability to choose different portfolios maybe for your pension fund or your retirement annuity fund. But there you certainly don't have to worry yourself about what underlying or individual ETF or stock or share am I going to buy for my retirement fund. Discretionary investments, as the name says, discretion. That's where you can choose. That's where you've got all the freedom to do whatever you want to. But the price that comes with that freedom is that there's no tax benefits to those. You don't save anything in terms of any tax in terms of your contributions, but you also don't benefit anything in terms of tax savings inside that discretionary amount investment account. So often I see people really getting excited about the idea of getting involved in buying shares on the online share trading account. But if you start out there, you're actually leaving a lot of money on the table, a lot of benefit on the table. By first making maximum use of the tax savings that you can get in a tax-free account and in retirement savings, leaving discretionary accounts for last. Once you get to that point, you can start thinking about all sorts of fancy and wonderful things there. But, leave the excitement for the roller coaster ride or the bungee jumping. Investing should actually be boring. If it's boring, you're doing it right.
Wow, I haven't heard that before. I think many people would very, very quickly differ with you, Nerina. I think absolutely appreciating. So, we've spoken about the different accounts and the different investments that put inside the account. But let's talk about the financial provider behind that account. And maybe Simon, you can talk a little about brokers and stockbrokers. I often hear and often get this question, but I want to cut out the stockbroker. What do they mean by that exactly?
Adele, I think part of the trick is that back in the day, your broker was the person who sold you an insurance policy, a life insurance or a long-term insurance, or maybe even a short-term insurance. But there's another type of broker, and that's the person who stands, or the institution that stands between you and the JSE, between the stock exchange. And what you can't do is rock up in what you can rock up in Sandton and go look at the JSE. You can't bring your FICA documents and sort of go to reception with your FICA and your 300 Rand and say, please, can I have that ETF? You need to go into a broker. The benefit of brokers is that they're professionals, they're regulated, they've passed exams, so it's not just some fly by night. Not everyone is a broker, not everyone can provide that service. My company and I don't. I'm a teacher. I teach people about stuff. And ultimately, when you want to transact, you need to go to a stockbroker. You need to go to ETFSA, who are stockbrokers, and they can then facilitate that transaction. And I think the reason we want to cut out that middle person is because we're worried about how much they charge us. And back in the day, that was a totally fair response. Truthfully, there are brokers and there are brokers out there, but we live in an amazing time where, I was doing a webcast yesterday and we were literally, the difference in fees, I think, was 5 cents on 100 Rand. In other words, make no mistake, if there's 5 cents, I would like it in my pocket, but we're talking 5 cents. Whereas, when I started back in the 80s, man, forget 5 cents. You were paying 2, 3, 4 Rand per 100 Rand in fees. So you can certainly find cost-effective ways to do it, and there are many of those available, but you still need to go through that broker to get to the exchange, to be able to buy and sell.
Simon, I think you know, with technology being so amazing, I mean, the fact that we have almost 600 people dialing in today from across the country, even from Sri Lanka with Vangile's fantastic presentation. It's amazing. And if you take technology into investing as well, you know, I have an online share trading account. So I would buy and sell. I typically buy more than what I sell because I'm in for the long run. I'm here to buy and hopefully build wealth over time for my family. And with this online share trading account, you know, I can quickly put in an order, and you create almost the impression that you are actually seeing the market, that you have direct connection to the market, even though that isn't really the case, because of technology, you've got the broker with all these servers and stuff sitting between you and the actual exchange. So it creates the impression that I've actually got a lot more control than what the case might be. So I think with that, we're going to take a question quickly. Just give me a second. I'll see what the stage is holding for us. Just refreshing quickly. There we go. So there's lots of good questions here. Let's see here. Okay, so in terms of the actual accounts, when I use my FICA documentation, that requires a lot of work, I would imagine. How intensive is that?
So I don't think it necessarily has to be a very big process. Yes, FICA requirements is something that applies to all of us. We can't get away from it. But the 4 standard documents that would be required is something that proves your identity, something that proves your residential address, something that proves your bank account details, and the 4th one being proof of income tax. Now, when it comes to a tax-free account, for example, as I said, it's not a prerequisite that you have to be a registered taxpayer to qualify for that, but that might often be the 4th requirement in terms of that. Depending on which platform or broker or financial services provider you deal with, that process of submitting your FICA documentation hopefully should be an electronic and online process. It varies from provider to provider, but typically if you've got those 4 documents available, you're good to go. And you upload your documents, and then opening the account is really not an onerous process. If you're investing on behalf of your children, if they're minors under 18 years old, they would use the proof of address of the parent, and they would use the proof of the bank account of the parent. It really is as simple as that.
And Joel, if I can just quickly say, when I know people who want to circumvent FICA and they think, oh, I found a platform that doesn't need FICA. If it doesn't need FICA, it's a scam, because FICA is a global phenomenon. So, you know, if you're trying to cut out that little step, you're sending your money to who knows where, and truthfully, you're probably not going to see it again.
I think then, lastly, maybe we can just talk about some financial resources. So where do I go? I mean, there's so much out there. Is there a list somewhere of stockbrokers or financial service providers? You know, should I follow certain accounts again, websites? Please, I need to know this information. Nerina, maybe you can.
Yeah, so I think you already mentioned this in the previous panel as well, and that's the one thing that there's not a shortage of, is access to information. And I really want to encourage everybody that is here at She Invest today to engage online and find that information and empower yourself with knowledge. It's so easy to just abdicate that responsibility and say, oh, I'm just going to get someone else to do that. But every time you abdicate some of that responsibility, you lose control of not just your money and your finances, but actually your financial future, your destiny. So engage on social media, via Twitter, via Facebook. You know, certainly Simon's website, Just One Lap, is one of the foremost information providers out there. ETFSA really is the seminal source for information on exchange-traded funds. Learn more about it. Identify those where you can learn free of charge, because there's a lot there. You certainly don't have to pay money to learn. You just have to commit the time and the mental sort of capacity to say, I want to learn more about this. I don't need to be afraid of this. And addressing fear really comes through empowering yourself with that knowledge and that insight. You can certainly follow Simon and myself also on Twitter or on social media. I encourage you to engage with everybody that is on this platform today and to learn from the best in this way.
Thank you so much, Narina and Simon. I think we're almost running out of time. Lastly, I'd just like to remind everyone, go visit the Expo sites, particularly also women in ETFs. There's not only talk about women, but also about ETFs as well. So we're talking about connecting, inspiring, and educating each other. So thank you again, Narina and Simon, for all of your time today.
Right. And before you pop off, Simon, there's a question about whether or not you can mention your sites, please, in your blog for details.
It's only my website, just onelap.com, ONE, and you'll find all the contact details and everything people need there. Just to quickly say what Narina said, this is not rocket science. Yes, we use jargon. Yes, it seems overwhelming, but everyone out there listening today, you've got a skill which would baffle Narina and I. We just happen to be in a different field. This is not complicated.
Fantastic. Adele, so many questions have come in for your panel, and luckily we have some of them being answered by various teams who have joined us as part of this particular conference. So job well done to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. And please enjoy the rest of the day. Cheers, guys. Bye-bye.
So if you go over to the chat function, you'll be able to see questions that have popped up, that have come up from some of our delegates, and the fact that some are being answered directly by members of different organizations that, are paying attention to curiosities. We did invite various exhibitors, of course, and some of them already attending to your questions on the chat function. So what a panel. That was fantastic. So many nuggets to draw out of that. So much to learn. As Simon said, it's not rocket science. We just have to allow ourselves to follow the breadcrumbs in order to understand exactly what it's all about, what investing and what the stock market is all about. But they did make it quite understandable in this section. And so we do advise, and just to let you know that at the end of this conference, you'll have about an hour or so to still walk through this virtual space that's been created. You'll still be able to experience the expo side of the conference, and you can go and connect with the various exhibitors that are here. So you'll have a good hour, to still get down all the information that you've been looking for, that you wanted to get out of this particular session. So before we bring you our dynamite second keynote speaker, let's meet another one of our partners with a short video. And this time around, it's on women in ETFs.
We are women in ETFs, and we are the face of investing. Who says investing is a zero-sum game? We truly believe that a rising tide lifts all boats. We foster a more inclusive culture for our industry because diversity of thought makes us all better investment professionals. We thrive on diversity across different types of organizations, at different levels of the organization, and across geographic locations. Who says culture is driven from the top down? We influence the culture of our industry because our mission is about inclusivity. That means increasing opportunities, representation, and exposure. And we know that change doesn't happen in a vacuum. It starts with us, how we interact, how we support each other, how we inspire one another. Who says work has to feel like work? Our events are fun and collaborative, with the best and brightest minds in investing. We celebrate our accomplishments, build lasting friendships, and create business opportunities. Our members connect through events and get career insights from our educational webinars. Who says you have to be your own advocate? We coach and mentor each other to pay it forward and to send the ladder back down. We partner with organizations like the UN to help fulfill our mission. Our members build awareness through the Ring the Bell program, and they elevate our profile with Speakers Bureau appearances. Who says the world of investing is changing? We do, and we are at the forefront, from educational and networking opportunities to professional development, with the energy of a startup and the expertise of a blue chip. We are women in ETFs. We are women in ETFs, and we are the face of investing. Who says investing is a zero-sum game? We truly believe that a rising tide lifts all boats. We foster a more inclusive culture for our industry because diversity of thought makes us all better investment professionals. We thrive on diversity across different types of organizations, at different levels of the organization, and across geographic locations. Who says culture is driven from the top down? We influence the culture of our industry because our mission is about inclusivity. That means increasing opportunities, representation, and exposure. And we know that change doesn't happen in a vacuum. It starts with us, how we interact, how we support each other, how we inspire one another. Who says work has to feel like work? Our events are fun and collaborative with the best and brightest minds in investing. We celebrate our accomplishments, build lasting friendships, and create business opportunities. Our members connect through events and get career insights from our educational webinars. Who says you have to be your own advocate? We coach and mentor each other to pay it forward and to send the ladder back down. We partner with organizations like the UN to help fulfill our mission. Our members build awareness through the Ring the Bell program, and they elevate our profile with Speakers Bureau appearances. Who says the world of investing is changing? We do, and we are at the forefront, from educational and networking opportunities to professional development, with the energy of a startup and the expertise of a blue chip. We are Women in ETFs.
We're grateful for that message from Women in ETFs. But next we have Lungile Mashego and Ntobenhle Radebe. They're going to be telling us about their firm, which is a team of expert fund managers backed by some of the most reputable institutions in the financial industry. So here's a message from One Invest.
Hello, ladies. My name is Lungile Mashego, and joining me is my colleague Ntobenhle Radebe, and we're both from the One Invest team. Today, we're going to be talking about quite a few popular myths that are in the index investing space. But no, we're not having the famous passive versus active debate, because the truth is you should have a mix of both passive and active investments in your portfolio. Yep. Now that I've gotten that out of the way, should we get started?
Yes, thank you, Lungile. The first myth that I think we need to address is that financial markets are something to be wary of or something to be scared of. Ladies, please do not be scared. Women are still grossly underrepresented in financial markets and in financial investing. And that, of course, leaves us financially vulnerable, and our livelihoods are linked to our finances. But having said all of that, Lungile, we do find that, the tide is turning a little bit. We're starting to see a lot more women taking an active interest in their portfolios, in their investments. And, platforms such as She Invest has led us to believe that there is still room for growth and plenty to do in this space.
Absolutely. So in your view, how do women get involved then?
I think you and I can definitely agree on this one. Index investing or passive investing is a great way to get started. And also, if you already have a portfolio, it's a great way to enhance or diversify your portfolio. But before I carry on, let me just tell you what I mean by an index fund or a passive fund. What I mean is those funds that are specifically designed to track an underlying index, almost stock for stock, almost movement for movement. And what I mean by that is an underlying index would be a top 40, the Aussie, the Swix. And also we can get commodities in there such as gold, rhodium, platinum, and then some international indices also, MSCI, S&P. The whole aim of index funds is, as I mentioned before, match what the underlying index is doing and then give you the same performance or the same return that underlying index is showing. But one of the things that I do take comfort in from a passive or index investing is the fact that, you can get closer to financial freedom through index investing. And what I mean is that you're no longer just earning earning interest on your savings. You are now earning a return, a proper return that you can participate in the market with. And the other thing is that from there, depending on your risk categorization as an investor, you're a conservative investor, moderate investor, you're an aggressive investor, companies like One Invest will give you a whole suite of solutions that will suit your risk appetite and your risk approach. And the last thing is that, you can start now using these passive investments to actually start planning for the long term and get that financial planning going so that your long-term goals are realized and are more solid. But that actually brings me to the next myth, and the misconception or myth number 2 is that certain financial instruments such as exchange traded funds, or ETFs as we like to call them, are actually used for experts or are more appropriate to experts.
I don't think that's true at all, Ntombendle. I think the most intimidating thing about ETFs is the acronym itself. The moment you move past that, you'll realize that ETFs are so accessible, they're so flexible, and they're so easy to track that by the time that you get involved, you'll be quite the expert yourself.
Yeah, and the nice thing also is that they're traded on the exchange, so you'll definitely be in the same playing field as those so-called experts.
Absolutely. Which then brings us to the last myth, which is that ETFs are not transparent or they're very expensive.
Yeah,
what's your take?
Yeah, that's definitely not true, especially for index investments in totality. It's definitely not, because with an index investment, what you ask for is what you get. You're asking for index performance of a certain index, and that's what you should be getting. There shouldn't be any two ways about it. What should be important to an investor is tracking efficiency and getting a company such as One Invest that is renowned for tracking efficiency. And what I mean about that is a fund manager that is able to match as closely as possible to what the underlying index is doing. And of course, that would be less fees. And then again, that leads us to the next thing, the transparency in fees. Listen, look at your minimum disclosure documents or your fund fact sheets and actually find out what it is you're paying for your unit trust, what it is you're paying for your ETFs. But I must say, with ETFs, Lungile, because they are traded on the stock exchange, you may need to, or incur some brokerage costs or trading costs through your online platform or through your broker that you use, a stockbroker that you use in order to trade. Yeah. Just be careful of that. But what's important, and I want to stress here, is that there is transparency. What you're asking for is what you get. And just because a product is more expensive does not mean it is a better quality. You know what you should be looking for, again, is tracking efficiency. Are you getting the index that you're looking for? Are you getting performance close enough to it? And also then to consider, are you getting it at the most cost-effective level? But you know what? We've had to rush through these 3 myths though for today, but I'm sure that clients and the public that is listening to us, what ways can they get a hold of us?
I think the easiest way that people can get to us, or should we say the simplest way that people can get to us looking at your background, is through our website, www.oneinvest.co.za. And alternatively, they can also find us on Twitter.
Yes, and our handle is @oneinvest_SA. Thank you so much.
I think this has been quite a cool conversation. Thanks,
Thank
Ntombendle.
you. Absolutely, and happy index investing to everybody.
Thank you so much to Lungile as well as Ntombendle from One Invest. That was lovely. Well, we opened with the keynote speaker and we're going to close with another keynote speaker. Our next speaker is just absolute dynamite. Some of you are already anticipating her talk, as I can see on the chat that's going on the side of the screen. She's a multi-industry and business award recipient. She's a business thought leader and strategist. Lynette Ntuli is passionate about diversity, inclusion, and socioeconomic development. She is in property. She's in asset management and infrastructure development. She's the CEO of Innate Investment Solutions, and she's absolutely passionate about youth development and leadership. And she also drives various initiatives in education, in entrepreneurial and skills development. She once said, right, and I'm going to quote you, Lynette. She once said, "I don't want to live a life where I have to constantly seek permission, because then I will not reach my purpose." Ladies and gentlemen, Lynette Ntuli with her keynote, "A Woman's Place is on the Board."
Thank you so much, Azania. Oh, good morning, everyone, and thank you so much, Azania, for that very kind introduction. Thank you again to the JSC team for the invitation to join you for the She Invest Summit. It's in a very different world, in a very different format, and I certainly know I miss the energy that one is met with in the rooms and being able to connect in person with everyone. But thank goodness for technology, and I'm hoping that we will still find the opportunity to connect meaningfully today through the words I have to share with you, but also through some of the questions and insights that I've already been catching up on during the course of this event. A woman's place is in the boardroom. We've all heard the famous adage, what's your favorite position? And I always say the answer should be CEO. And in so many ways, as the world has begun to navigate its way through a world post-COVID into a new decade and into 2020, we as women have significantly begun to think not only about ourselves, but what we're going to plant and what we're going to ultimately leave here. Women, as you've heard this morning, as you've shared in the chats, as well as has been shared by the wonderful speakers who preceded me this morning, predominantly save, acquire assets, and invest both personally but also into their businesses to address very specific needs. We're also trying to close, in many instances, generational gaps, income gaps in our own homes, but we're also trying to fulfill very specific aspirations. We all want to generate wealth. We all want to build and leave serious value, but also significant legacies. And of course, whilst we do that, we want to live. We want to sustain our work-life mobility. We want to see the world, enjoy all of its gifts, and of course, gift the world with all that we're talented with. However, some of the factors that cripple our ability to create money, to create meaning, but also to maintain our mobility as women, whether it's in society, it's in our communities, it's in government and politics and the economy, and in so many different spaces, really are historical legacy issues and do continue to hamper our ability to particularly be included and stay involved in the economic discourse of the development of our own country, but also in the development of economic structures that involve us anywhere around the world. It's really been interesting to see the number of very skilled, educated, and experienced women who are not only investing, but are also saying, how do I invest in other businesses or even start businesses? And to see those numbers rise sharply. However, one of the big impediments we're specifically seeing in our own economy and economies around the world is that in spite of women's acceleration into the spaces of education and in skills, this experience is not necessarily converting into resources that women are able to then use to scale and gear real wealth in their own individual capacity or even into their businesses. We all know that women need capital, and with that, women also need a number of support tools, infrastructure, resources, and even advocates to help us create real wealth. And in so many instances, a lot of us also simply struggle to ask. And of course, raise awareness to our different needs, our weaknesses, even in this particular area. And of course, in going out to acquire it, there's so many blocks and stumbling blocks related to often our fear in this particular space. Women-owned enterprises. Being in lockdown, one of the biggest things that I've noticed, and I hope you have too, has just been the sheer resilience and the sheer innovation that women-owned businesses have injected into our economy. Often very small, often fixing and solving very real day-to-day problems, creating new products and getting them out there. And it's been so exciting to see the amount of support, but also the amount of new products and new ideas that women have been able to generate into a world that in many instances has almost felt like it was shifting out of the ground around us or even crumbling in so many senses. But here's my fear. Women will have started those businesses and turned around and pivoted their different endeavors, their skills, and even how they do their jobs. But the problem becomes in staying power. The same enterprises may not exist in 2021 and beyond. And of course, we've then got to start to look at what is it about the factors of sustainability that made those women get up, but then also at the same time stopped those women from continuing to play the game. So let me set a different scene for all of you as well. Globally, about 163 million women in the last 2 years have started or begun to run new businesses. And all of these businesses and their earning potential is now aggregated at about 18 trillion US dollars. We've all heard the emphasis being paid to the fact and the importance that you need to have the other half of your population involved in the economic discourse. And of course, we can see then that surely by starting businesses, buying products, and women really moving the ground around them, we're going to increase discretionary spend worldwide by 2020 up to 75%, power that is held in women's hands. But with that, we're also starting to see that as women take these bold steps and create these new initiatives and move into new sectors and use their skills in those spaces, we're not seeing adequate studies and research data, services, and even responsive products in our markets. And there really are two specific indicators that are beginning to show us that 70% of women-owned businesses in developing countries, much like our own, are underserved by financial institutions. And with that, we've also got a massive credit and a capital gap in terms of the servicing of women-owned SMEs. And so closing these gaps, and if there were products and a market that met us on the bridge, would in many instances increase the world's GDPs by anything between 12 and 18% in the next 10 years. So as we move forward, we've got to say, how do we change the game? And what are our game changers, ladies? I think we've all really well documented all the various challenges, the problems, the doubts, the fears, and even some of the obstacles that exist. But as they say, never waste a crisis. The real opportunities for all of us lie in our ability to engage with, but also to create responsive solutions to the problems that I've listed on the screen for all of you this morning. Let's look at ways in which we enter the capital markets. What are the high barriers to entry? What is it that we want from financial services, markets, products? What is it that we want when people say we are included? What do we want from the boardroom table, as it were? Also, one of the issues we need to look at is what other support infrastructure do we need as we make these decisions? And this very platform that we're all on today is just one of the very critical interventions that we need in starting to make those decisions, make those choices, and of course guide how it is that we will move and shake the global markets, the capital markets, and of course cement our place at the table. One of the highlights that I put on this particular slide as a game changer as well is that in our limitations around how we interact with products, how we interact with financial services innovation, is that numerical fear on its own, removed, is perhaps the single biggest game changer for women right the way around the world. And in many instances, we all think that the asset markets and the capital markets and the like are only perhaps spaces that are geared for those who are really good at working through their Excel spreadsheets and term sheets. But no, ladies, remove the fear. Learn to engage with the various tools. There's so many other new tools and platforms that have begun to make it so much more easier to interact with what's going on in the world of finance, in the world of capital, and in the world, of course, of acquiring that wealth that we are all after. So, what is it for us that are going to be, in addition to those game changers, are going to be the three issues we need to focus on as we move ahead? The first is awareness. The second is building our confidence. And the third for us is starting to look at ways in which we participate. The platform today that we're engaging on is on its own one of the ways that we're starting to say, hey, we want to increase our market activity. How can we collaborate differently? And more importantly, how can we continue to advocate for our representation, not only on the main board, the JSE board that, as it were, but also in all of the spaces where the relevant decisions around the development of products, around inclusivity, around service, and of course the decisions that are made about where, in many instances, our pension funds and our investment funds ultimately go and catalyze new growth for other enterprises and even individuals. We want to play in that game. And as they say, if you aren't at the table, then you are on the menu. So what does participation then begin to look like for you and I? Firstly, it starts to look at what are your daily habits. For me, perhaps the most significant daily habits that has changed my appreciation of how I run my business, of how I interact with the listed markets, and also how I focus and begin to build my own wealth portfolio is simply following the indicators of the day. So most mornings, I start my day by following the JSE Sends. And I certainly hope that after today, most of you are going to jump on Twitter or wherever you're going to find the Sends and make sure that it's one of the notifications that comes up on your phone on a daily basis. Here's the thing. You may not necessarily already be an investor on the JSE or any of its companies, as it were, yet. But as you begin to follow the news of what's moving, what's shifting, what's falling apart in many instances, and who's making what moves on the market itself, you learn a heck of a lot of information that you will not find on the front cover or in the 3rd, 5th, or 7th page of your financial dailies. And that information, just about what's going on in the organizations, how they're moving, the strategic decisions and interventions they're making, will teach all of us a lot about what's happening in different sectors, but will also help you in terms of the choices you make, just based on you following what you are interested in. Read, and read books, read the journals, read the various publications. That information has become democratized and it's there for all of us. And it's really up to all of us to just get out there and absorb as much of it as possible. Because with the information and the influx of information that's available to us, that knowledge is ultimately also what's going to empower us from a confidence perspective. That's also going to open our gateways to participation. In our money habits, I think everybody today has already touched on ways and interesting ways in which we can use the money that's available to us. But my best piece of advice to anyone, whether you're running a business, you're earning a salary, or you're investing and getting different forms of income, always pay yourself first. Always pay yourself first. And even if your monthly decision is to put aside 1,000 Rand into just a savings account and accounts linked to your main accounts, etc. Just that satisfaction, you work for that money. It's just that satisfaction of setting that money and setting aside that money as a priority in your own journey will on its own change your own reflection on why you earn money and why you enjoy earning money, and really start to establish meaning behind the existence of wealth in your own life. And as you watch that money accumulate and grow, and then you start to make decisions around how it works as well, it's your money. It's not money to service payments, money to service debts. It's not money to service other people and different needs. It's yours to decide on. And so that ownership, or at least that sense of ownership, is critically important as you begin to build an asset portfolio. Change the discussions we have. One of the things that I know I irritate much of my family and friends with is asking them, how do you earn your money? And, you know, in many instances, it might almost seem like a nosy question. Somebody decided it was a nosy question. But in my world, it's become critically important to know how the people closest to me, the people I work with, are actually able to make their money. What do people pay them for? What specific skills, service, products are they being paid for on a daily basis? If it's illegal, of course, I need to know that too, because I might be the one person who perhaps gets the call for their bail. But I do need to know, because in that knowledge and information of understanding how we're all participating in the economy, as it were, it begins to change the nature of the conversations we have at home, at our dining room tables. And of course, it changes the nature of the conversation, the depth of the conversation that we can even begin to have at meeting room tables and at boardroom tables too. One of the ways in which women are very gifted and blessed is how we're able to come together. Stokvels, different organizations, schemes, groupings, book clubs. And just by dropping into those traditional ways in which we connect and collaborate, this may be our very opportunity to change that conversation into how do we invest and what are our practices around that? And in so doing, empower each other differently. Try that conversation tip. Let's convert our fear into fierce. And fierce for me is acknowledging what needs work in terms of our understanding, our education, and our appreciation of different markets. And of course, then what do we need to do to get to work to address those particular things? Let's participate. One of the big ways that I learned about, the assets class I'm very involved in now, which is property, is just looking through reports and reading reports. I'm participating meaningfully in meetings. Today, I serve on 2 JSE listed boards as well. And often in the first year of my involvement, I spend a lot of quiet time. And a lot of quiet time just listening to the conversation itself and also reading up on what's happened before, so that I understand that when I do raise my voice and I add my ideas to what's happening strategically, operationally, I come in not only with context, but I also come in with a very clear idea of the areas in which I can add value to those conversations. And of course, ladies, continue to follow and support other women-owned businesses, enterprises, and endeavors, because in so doing, we will convert our consumerism into support, into funding, and ultimately into innovation and growth. The big picture we're all trying to change is on the screen in front of you now. Remove all the men from that picture, and in that picture, there are still only 3 women left. In 2020, on that picture, there's only 2 women left, so it's gotten a little bit worse. And so, ladies, when we start to think about who runs the world, we also need to start saying to ourselves, at what levels do we run the world? At what sectors do we run the world? At what tables do we want to sit? And it all begins with our looking at, where can I start conversations? Where can I take my place? Where can I create value? What is the most important priority for myself in creating meaning? And of course, how can I mobilize myself, mobilize others, and mobilize my participation in an economy to ensure that a woman's place remains, of course, on the board? Thank you so much for allowing me to share a few of my practical thoughts and tips that have helped me hack through my participation, not just on the JSE, but also in building money, meaning, and mobility for myself. Thank you very much.
And thank you, Lynette. Thank you so much. Just keeping an eye on the chats. People really left with a lot of nuggets from your talk. Thanks a lot. That was transformative.
Thank you so much, Azza, for having me.
Lynette and Julie, everybody. So we are almost at the end of our formal program, right? But there is a treat that's coming your way. There's a question on the screen right now. You need to answer that question, and we're going to be picking winners in a short while. So before we get there, though, we've got a big moment that's coming up. I want you to pay attention. Let's pause to hear from Rochelle Jenner from AfriFocus. Rochelle has a message for all our delegates. Take a look.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Rochelle Jenner, and I'm a portfolio manager for AfriFocus Securities. I'm a CFA charter holder. Today, I'm going to be talking about the tax-free savings account maximizer. But before we begin, I'm just going to give you a brief overview of AfriFocus Securities. We have been around for over 20 years. We are a level 2 BEE contributor. We specialize in wealth management and portfolio management services. We recently introduced a global platform where you can invest in over 36 different stock exchanges around the world. Investors can make use of a single discretionary allowance. You should choose AfriFocus Securities because we believe in trust. We believe in building relationships over the long term. We believe in adding value to the clients. We've been around for a long time. We know a thing or two about investing. We believe in putting the client's interest above everyone else's. Today I'm going to be addressing the following. What is a tax-free savings account maximizer? The methodology behind it, the backtesting, the current allocations, and the fees. So what is a tax-free savings account maximizer? It's rules-based, it's systematic, it's momentum-driven. It aims at taking out the emotion of investing. It's suitable for those investors with a high risk tolerance and those who don't want to be actively involved in the decision-making process. It aims at maximizing returns while minimizing drawdowns. The methodology is very simple. You need to invest 100,000 Rand to properly execute a strategy where it's a constraint to 20%, meaning that any point in time, 20% of the account value is allocated to an ETF if it meets the criteria. If it doesn't meet the criteria, then it's invested in cash. There is a maximum of 5 approved ETFs. There is a quarterly rebalance aimed at minimizing trading costs. Right, now we can talk about the backtesting. As you can see, we backtested the strategy since December 2002. We compared it against a benchmark of cash plus 5%. The cash is the relative and the 5% is the absolute, the risk premium that we demand for implementing the strategy. As we can see that the strategy beat its benchmark. It beat the benchmark because it buys into uptrends, it sells into downtrends, and it rebalances when an ETF exhibits mean reversion. So what does this mean? It means that when the ETF drops to its mean reversion value, it sells. And when it rises to its mean reversion value, it buys. The portfolio produced an annual return of 14.6%, a volatility of 10.7%, a max drawdown of 18.5%, and a Sharpe ratio of 0.66. From my experience, 0.66 is a good figure. The Sharpe ratio is the incremental return for a unit of standard deviation taken. It is the excess return over cash. I also want to mention that this strategy is effective over the long term. As we can see, over a 12-month rolling period, it produced a minimum return of 13.4%. I want to talk about a little about the current allocations. The tax-free savings account maximizer has chosen China, Japan, S&P 500, emerging markets, and G7 bonds. The fees, there is an annual administration fee of 50 basis points per annum, and there is trading commissions at quarterly rebalancing date when we're rebalancing the portfolio. Thank you for your time. You can contact me at rushilj@afrifocus.co.za. Don't forget to like our Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram.
Well, thank you so much to Rochelle. I see that some of you are commenting on the sound that you weren't able to hear him properly. So what I can assure you of is that Rochelle is also present in the exhibition along with AfriFocus. So go and spend some time with them to discover more about what it is they do. And they also present at the exhibition. So AfriFocus, thank you so much for that message and being one of our sponsors. So now I would like to invite onto the platform. Can Zanele join me? I'm going to invite her to join me so that we can give away our final set of prizes. Remember, Zanele is the JSE's Director for Marketing and Corporate Affairs. So she's going to be doing the honors in our prize giving, the final lot of prizes for this morning. So Zanele, I can't do this on my own because this is just an incredible prize that one lucky person is going to get to walk away with. We've got two actually, but one of them is absolutely incredible, and it is courtesy of AfriFocus. So Rochelle and his team made it possible for us to be able to afford one lucky delegate this incredible opportunity that could literally set you on a new investment path. That I can assure you, right? So before we will try and we're trying to get Zanele back onto the screen, I just want to take a quick look at the poll. I hope you went over to the poll to answer the questions that were asked so that we get a sense of whether or not the service offering here today, the lineup here today, answers your questions. For instance, We asked about whether or not investing scares you, yes or no. We'll take a look at those poll results in a moment. But if you haven't had your opportunity to go on the poll to answer those questions, just go on there and complete them quickly. And then we'll be able to give you the results in a short while. Things like, I know about exchange traded funds, that's ETFs, of course. Another one, I want to buy, but I don't know how. So it's very simple, yes and no answers. That's what you have to select. So go off to the poll, answer a couple of questions. We'll give you the results to get a sense of all this over 500, just under 600 delegates experiencing as far as investing is concerned. It's going to be very valuable. Zanele, thank you for coming on.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for having me on. It's been amazing being a delegate.
Oh, you were able to sit back and watch and enjoy.
Absolutely.
Okay. I thought you should come on so that I don't have to be the only one who's making it rain prizes. You have the honors for this one because this is a massive prize, courtesy of AfriFocus.
It is, and I think it really is. Once you invest that first, and it's not the amount doesn't matter. Once you do your first investment of 500 Rand, 1,000 Rand, this lucky person gets 10,000 Rand for their first investment. And I think what's so critical is to do it regularly and do it consistently, because the incremental value of this money over 5 or 10 years, it is unbelievable. So I really think. I'm gonna make a huge confession. I used to work at Classic FM many years ago when I was very, very young, and I worked for Alec Hogg. I worked with Alec Hogg on the station, and I used to invest in property because I thought, that's it, I'm buying property. And Alec said to me, he doesn't think that that's a good investment strategy. I should have bought shares. So you're looking at somebody who did not take good advice. And today, I can tell you, it was not good advice. Had I invested in shares, I would have been sitting on millions and have options. So, oh, sorry, my dog.
It's not the dog, it's the Hardy does.
I don't even know where he is. And when is a good time to start? It's right now. So if anybody walks out of this and registers their investment portfolio, commits to a certain portion of money every single month, you're bound to have less regrets 10 years from now, 20 years from now, when you look back and you see how that investment has grown so incrementally. And there's so much evidence to prove it. So don't wait for the next year invest. Do it now.
Do it now. Do it now. And really start, right? AfriFocus is giving someone an incredible boost in getting this going. Right.
10,000 Rand.
A 10,000 Rand tax-free savings account. How is that? So we need a winner. We need a winner for this one. And the winner, the AfriFocus winner, drum roll. Would you do the honors or should I?
Please go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. And our winner is Ashley Naudé. Congratulations to Ashley. Ashley, wherever you are, Ashley Naudé, you are our winner this morning. AfriFocus is giving you a 10,000 Rand tax-free savings account. What an incredible boost. But it doesn't end there. Old Mutual has also afforded us an opportunity to give away a 1,000 Rand Take-A-Lot voucher as our final prize this morning. So can you, look at that. Oh, Ashley is saying, oh my God, she's shocked. I'm glad. She says, oh my God, I'm the winner. Okay, so let's give away the 1,000 Rand Take-A-Lot voucher courtesy of Old Mutual. We need another winner for this particular part of the competition. And the winner
is Melanie Napier. Melanie Napier.
Yes.
Congratulations.
You are the winner of the 1,000 Rand Take-A-Lot voucher, Melanie. Congratulations to both our winners. A final word from you, Zanele, before we get into a yoga session.
Well, quickly to Melanie as well. Melanie, I have a rule that if I get something for free, I then take from my income and I save it. So you've got 1,000 Rand for a Take-A-Lot voucher. You now owe yourself 1,000 Rand to go invest in your future. Sorry to spoil my enjoyment if you had other plans. Azania, I think you're the first person I want to say thank you so much to. You've been an absolute star in doing this for us. I was such a fan from far. And when I saw that the team chose you, I didn't say anything, but I was like, yes, thank you. So thank you so much for doing this for us. And I think I also want to just thank the team that's pulled this together, the JSE team. You won't believe how many hands were on hand to actually do this, and they pulled it together so brilliantly to do that. We would also not been able to do this without all the amazing sponsors we have. So thanks to AfriFocus and thanks to Old Mutual. It's always lovely to have the two of them working with us. We also have, I suppose, Nerina and Adele and Simon Brown, as well as really, are always there and forever not tiring to educate our communities about investing. We have to democratize the ability to really participate in these markets, and I really hope that they'll be abundantly blessed for all the work that they actually do as well. And thanks to Lynette and Vangile for being such amazing role models, and if you ever had to look for role models, please can we have more of you helping us as women along this path. And I think that's it from me. Thank you so much to everyone for attending. Your education did not begin today. It doesn't end today. Keep on educating yourself, and we'll meet each other as neighbors in the financially free and financially in the financial freedom village. Thank you so much.
I want to be that neighbor. I want to be in that community, financially free. I love it. Thank you, Zanele. That was really a wonderful message from her and a great way to take us to a Zen moment of today's session. Now we move on to a powerful end to this morning's empowering session. And we thought that we should leave you in a state of balance, a state of self-awareness, a state of strength when it comes to your money. So we end with a compassion practice. That's how I like to refer to this practice. We end with a compassion practice that is about movement, because compassion moves you to action. Compassion is free of judgment, it's free of criticism, and it utilizes wisdom that comes from the spiritual practice known as yoga. So over to our teacher, Natalie Zait, and where you are, please, deep breath in, deep breath out, and enjoy the session. Namaste.
Hi everyone, my name is Natalie and I am going to be running through a little yoga sequence and some breath work with you today. What yoga has done for me is really brought a lot of calm into my life. So it helps me work against or with anxiety. It is great for stress reduction. It's improved my flexibility, not only physically but also emotionally, being able to sort of ride the waves of whatever life throws at you. So I'm excited to share some breathing techniques with you today, and then also some yoga postures and a brief little flow just to get you moving. And so the breathing techniques that I'm going to share with you today, the first one is called Ujjayi breath or ocean breath. And this is an ancient yogic breathing technique where we constrict the back of the throat on our exhale, and we allow ourselves to tap into the parasympathetic nervous system. So to practice or to do this breathing technique, you can bring your hand out in front of your face and imagine that the hand is a mirror. And take an inhale through the nose, and as you exhale, open the mouth and imagine you're fogging up the mirror that is in front of your hand. So inhaling through the nose, exhale, fogging the mirror that is in front of or acting as your hand. And now we're going to remove this and inhale and exhale through the nose. So inhaling through the nose and exhale, constricting the back of the throat, lengthening on the exhalation. So let's try this breathing technique together. So inhaling through the nose and exhale, constrict the back of the throat, lengthen on exhale. Inhale through the nose. Exhale, constrict the back of the throat. Lengthen on exhale. Inhaling through the nose once more. Exhale, constrict the back of the throat. Lengthen on exhale. Last deep inhale here. And that is Ujjayi breath or oceanic breath. So a beautiful breathing technique or pranayama that helps to reduce anxiety and to calm you. So you can practice this anytime if you're stuck in traffic, or if you feel that you need a little bit of calming, or you're feeling a bit anxious. Just tap into this breathing technique and it will greatly benefit you. Our next breathing technique is a little bit more modern and has been adapted into the modern breathwork practitioner sort of work, and it is called box breathing. So the box breathing technique is great for reducing anxiety, also to help gain focus. So if you're just about to go into a meeting or into a boardroom or any situation where you feel that you'd like some calm focus, this is the breathing technique that is really great for you to use. It also helps to build up lung function and helps to boost the immune system. So a really great technique to use, especially in this time of COVID, where we're really focusing on building up some immunity and great functioning of the lungs. This breathing technique is broken down into 4 parts. So we're going to break it into an inhale, and then at the top of the inhale, we're going to hold the breath, and then we're going to take an exhale, and at the bottom of that exhale, we're going to hold the breath once more. So I'm going to encourage you again to take this breathing technique either seated in a chair with your feet planted into the ground, or sitting on a yoga mat with your legs crossed, hands either on the knees with palms facing up, or hands just resting in the lap. So we're going to inhale for the count of 4. So inhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Now, after having tried this the first time, you may find that the length of the inhale, the hold, the exhale, and the hold is too long for you. So you can reduce this to a number of 3. So let's try to do one round together on a count of 3. So inhale, 2, 3. Hold, 2, 3. Exhale, 2, 3. Hold, 2, 3. Inhale. And inhale, 2, 3. Hold, 2, 3. Exhale, 2, 3. Hold, 2, 3. And have a bit of fun with this breathing technique, and just sit after you've done it with the eyes closed and just feel into the body and how the body then feels after having practiced this box breathing technique. Okay, so let's move on to a little yoga session that you are welcome to join me. Just grabbing yourself a mat or a towel, placing that onto the floor. And this little 5-minute sequence is really just for getting the body moving. You can practice this first thing in the morning. It's just some basic and gentle stretches that you can sort of incorporate into your day. So grab your mat and let's take a little sequence of yoga. So coming into a cross-legged seated position. So one leg in front of the other. This is called easy seat or Sukhasana. We're going to start off with a few gentle stretches. So bringing the hands down onto the mat, fingertips to point down. Take the left ear over to the left shoulder. So allow yourself a moment here, stretching through the right side of the neck, extending all the way down to the fingertips. Both fingertips are pressing down into the mat. Take a deep breath here. And then as you exhale, gently allow the right ear to drift down towards the right shoulder. So once more, we're stretching now through the left side of the neck. And just take a couple of breaths here.
And then exhale, draw left ear to left shoulder. So once more, pressing both fingertips down into the ground. And then exhaling, draw right ear to right shoulder. Take a couple of breaths here. And then raising the head up, coming back to neutral. Bringing the palms together to touch. Let's inhale and raise the hands right up above the head. So forearms brushing against the cheeks. Interlace the palms of the hands and, interlace the fingers and draw the hands up, gazing up towards the fingertips. Taking a deep inhale here. And as you exhale, gently draw the arms back down to the ground. Let's bring hands back into prayer. Inhale, draw the arms up. Interlace the fingers and flip the palms of the hands up towards the ceiling. And then as you exhale, we're going to twist over to the right side, dropping the left hand onto right knee, right hand behind you, gazing over the shoulder. Taking a couple of breaths here. And then inhale, raise the hands up once more, interlace the fingers, flip the palm of the hands up towards the ceiling, lengthen up through the spine. And as you exhale, we're twisting over to the left side, right hand onto left knee, gazing over the shoulder towards the back of the room. A couple of breaths here. And as you exhale, draw the hands up towards the ceiling once more. Flip the palms. Gaze up to the hands. And as you exhale, gently lower the hands back down towards the yoga mat. Coming into tabletop position. So knees are stacked underneath the hips. Wrists are stacked underneath the shoulders. We're stepping the right leg forward to the edge of the mat, both of the palms resting on the left side of this foot. Knees stacked above ankle here. Allow yourself to lunge forward, gazing forward, flattening the back. And then begin to tuck the back toe, raising up off the back knee. Left hand steps closer towards the right foot. And then right hand rotates up to ceiling. Couple of breaths here. On the next exhale, draw the hand back down. And we're stepping back into downward facing dog. So 2 breaths here. Press the soles of the feet down into the mat. Palms pressing equally. Gaze towards the fingers and then gently walk the toes in towards, halfway in towards the fingers and the fingers back towards the toes. Taking a big bend through the knees here. Allow the forehead to drop down. Bring both of the hands onto the elbows and gently rock from side to side. This pose is called dangling. So it's really great to help to elongate the spine. And as you're in this posture, just imagine stress just pouring all the way from the base of the spine and all the way along the spine and out through the top of the head. And then as you exhale, allow the hands to drift down to the floor. Gently move heel toe, the feet out to the side of your mat. And allow yourself to drop down into yoga squat. So bringing the hands into prayer, pressing the knees apart, taking a few moments here. Deep breaths. You can practice your Ujjayi breathing here. So inhaling through the nose, constricting the back of the throat, and exhaling through the nose once more. And then gently lower the hands down to the mat. We're going to step the feet back into plank pose. So taking a moment in plank pose. Wrists are stacked underneath shoulders here. And then gently allow yourself to lower down onto the floor. Coming into the final or the second last pose here, which is called Sphinx pose. So elbows are stacked underneath the shoulders, arms are extended forward, drop the shoulders away from the ears, gazing forward. So a beautiful pose if you spend a lot of time sitting at a desk. So this helps to encourage the natural curvature of your spine. A couple more deep breaths here. And then tuck the toes, gently lower the head, bring the hands underneath the shoulders. Let's press up and into the final pose, which is wide-legged child's pose. So bringing the knees out to the edges of the mat, feet to touch. Gently begin to walk the hands forward, dropping the whole body down onto the mat, resting the forehead, resting the arms. Just allow yourself a few more deep breaths here. Just take a moment to notice your breathing. Are you able to breathe fully into the breathing cavity as you inhale, expanding the lungs, side to side, forward and back, up and down. And as you exhale, completely letting go. Letting go of the breath and letting go of any last bits of tension. Last big breath here. And then when you're ready, gently press the palms into the mat and begin to walk the hands back towards the legs and come over into easy seat. So I'd like to thank you all for joining me on this little taster of yoga today, and just to encourage you all to make time for yourself. Take a bit of time out every now and then. Remember to do the things that you love, even in this very difficult time of change that we're going through. I encourage you to find things that really make your soul happy and to do those things. I'm Natalie from Trust Yoga, and I'm wishing you a truly beautiful day further. Namaste.
Namaste to you too, Natalie. Wow. I see on the chat side of life, Tembekile saying that dangling, that swinging or that hanging feels so comfortable. Yes, what a release. Glad you enjoyed that. That's absolutely superb. And you know what? Your dream to be one of the speakers on this platform, Tembekile, one day will happen. You put it out there, lots of people are urging you on the chat side of the stage, and someday, who knows, it could happen. So we've come to the end of our program, and I just want to recap our winners and of course what we heard today. We started off by giving away fantastic prizes. The first one courtesy of Core Shares, Shisha Mantere. Congratulations once more. There was a JSE gift hamper, and the winner there was Sajjad Ahmed. Remember, there was a little bit of confusion earlier on. Well, the team has sorted that out. There was also an Old Mutual Take a Lot voucher. Sindiswa Shabangu was our winner for that one. A Garmin watch, stunning Garmin watch. Palisa Hlanyani walked away with that one. And then another Take a Lot voucher, courtesy of Old Mutual, was won by Melanie Napier. And then the big prize, courtesy of AfriFocus, the 10,000 Rand tax-free savings account, went to Ashley Nodier. So that summarizes our winners for today. But what about the things that we heard? The things that we are now walking away with? We started off with Vangile, who said the 3 things that stop us from investing: waiting for financial perfection, not feeling safe with having money, and being present with our finances. And she said, spend according to your values, make your budget fit your life, create extra streams of income, invest every little bit that you can, and also breathe and take time out. Those are the nuggets that I noted from Vangile. And then a DAO session, of course, with Candice as well as Zama. It was clear that an emergency fund is important. Many of you echoed this sentiment because that's what COVID has taught us. Also practical solutions on planning our budget. Who can forget the rule, the 50-30-20 budget rule? 50% of your income after tax goes to your needs. 30% you can spend on your wants, and 20% has to go into your savings. And Zama said that having a good command of your financing frees you up to also manage your investments very well. Zama also said that if the bank offers you another credit card, put the phone down on them. Put it down, put it down. It's never a good idea to use credit to fix a debt problem. Our delegate Tembekile said her dad used to tell them that don't try not to live a champagne life on a Coke salary. I think that stuck with a lot of people as well. Then we moved on and heard from Andrea Gardner, who was saying that as women, we need to self-promote. We need to self-promote more. And also this does not mean that there's an absence of skill, because when there's an absence of skill and an overconfidence, you're incompetent, but you're overconfident, then you'll fall into that Dunning-Kruger, you'll have the Dunning-Kruger effect, where there's a cognitive bias in which people with low ability at a task estimate their ability to be way above that. I see as well that Nongebo Masuku said that being at the JSE She Invest event is a form of investing in yourself. And I think this is one of the best things that the team can come across today. It's an affirmation that what we're putting out as part of JSE She Invest is what you're looking for. Simon said stock markets make money over a long period of time. It's not a get-rich-quick scheme, so look out for that. If a company says no FICA, that should ring your alarm bells. And then Nerina, the delegates have crowned her the mother of ETFs. She broke down tax-free savings as a means of building wealth, of course, over the long term, that there are other options like retirement accounts and also discretionary investment accounts that you can look at. Nerina also said investing should be boring. If it's boring, you're doing it right. Lynette, of course, closed us off, and we now know how to answer the question, what's your favorite position? Thank you, Lynette. And she also urged us to shake off that numerical fear. And the ways of impacting exclusion are, we need to be aware. I think this event does that. Tick. We've built awareness. We've built confidence. Tick. We've built participation. Tick. Because if you're not at the table, you're probably on the menu. And she said also, pay yourself first, something that many of you also echoed, and it resonated in so many ways. Pay yourself first in the form of money that you set aside for your investments and savings. And then finally, I just want to note another moment that happened on the chat side of life. Akashni Naidu said, I just created a tax-free savings account whilst listening to these great speakers. It's all about action, action, action. So Akashni, well done, well done, well done for that. My final words to you as we wrap, just with a little thought, a little caution, and a little effort, you can make the type of investment decisions that will see you achieve your goals. So take your time, pay attention, and be patient. Thank you so much to each and every one of you for attending this year's JSE She Invests conference. Thank you to everyone who made it possible. Happy Women's Month. Make sure you stick around because the expo part of the conference is still open. Visit the various exhibitors and make a plan to connect with them offsite. Thank you so much and goodbye.